Please like the video and subscribe to my channel isekai'd. Chapter 1. Waking up as the villain. The first thing I felt was dust. It coated my skin, clung to the rough fabric of my clothes, and filled my nose with the heavy, stale scent of old flour and long-neglected grain. I blinked my eyes open slowly, my head throbbing like I'd been hit with a brick, and instead of the familiar white ceiling of my small apartment back on Earth, I found myself staring up at cracked wooden beams strung with thick gray cobwebs. I tried to sit up, but a stack of papers slid off the rickety table beside me and scattered across the floorboards with a soft rustle. I reached down to pick one up, and the elegant, looping handwriting in dark ink made my blood run cold instantly. Invoice. 200 gold coins owed to the Merchants Guild. Due immediately. Failure to pay results in seizure of property. Another sheet fluttered near my knee. Rent arrears, 150 gold coins. 3 months overdue. And another and another. Ingredients supplier, 100 gold coins. Baker's toolsmith, 75 gold coins. It went on and on. Hundreds of gold coins in debt. Sums that felt impossible, astronomical. Money I couldn't even begin to imagine how to pay. Then the memories hit me. Not my memories, his memories. The original owner of this body. Lysander Vance, 22 years old. The only son of a once wealthy noble family that had fallen from grace after his father gambled away the fortune. Disowned and cast out for wasting what little remained of the family money on opening a bakery he had absolutely no talent for. Arrogant, vain, spoiled, and terrible at his craft. Hated by the townspeople, mocked by the nobility, and destined to be the laughingstock of the entire kingdom. And worst of all, I knew exactly who Lysander Vance was. He was a character from Realm of Light and Shadow, the BL game I'd played obsessively for months, the one I'd read every wiki entry for, watched every walkthrough of, and knew every route, every ending, and every hidden secret inside and out. My heart hammered painfully against my ribs as the realization settled heavy and cold in my chest. I had been pulled into another world. I was inside the game, and I was inhabiting the body of the most useless, most hated, and most pathetic side character in the entire story. In the original plot, the game followed a young woman named Arya, the Traveler, summoned from another world just like me, as she journeyed through the kingdom of Eldoria. She was the protagonist, the chosen one. Her path was written clearly. She would gather for powerful male leads to her side, win their hearts one by one, and eventually defeat the so-called Dark Lord to save the world, building her perfect harem of devoted lovers along the way. And Lysander? Lysander was nothing more than a stepping stone. Plot device. His entire role in the story was limited to one event, the royal baking competition. He would enter, full of arrogance and empty boasts, produce terrible, inedible sweets that looked pretty but tasted like ash, make a complete fool of himself, and lose miserably to Arya. Her victory over him would prove her natural talent, charm the judges, and draw the attention of the 4 male leads. Kale the holy hero, Rian the silver-tongued rogue, Elian the Archmage of the Star Tower, and Vare the fallen demon prince. After his humiliating defeat, Lysander would fade into the background, buried under his debts, despised and forgotten by everyone. He was designed to be a joke, a lesson in humility, and a stepping stone for the true heroine's rise. And now, somehow, impossibly, I was him. No way, I whispered, my voice cracking, sounding raw and unused. I pressed a trembling hand to my face, feeling the sharp line of my jaw, the softness of my hair, the features I knew from the character portraits. This can't be happening. This is a nightmare. A really, really detailed nightmare. I pushed myself to my feet, legs unsteady, and looked around the small shop that was now mine. It was a disaster. Flour bins were half empty and crawling with small weevils. Ingredients were of the cheapest, lowest quality available. Every recipe book on the shelf had notes scribbled frantically in the margins. Corrections that were wrong, measurements that were off, instructions that were guaranteed to turn even the simplest dough into a disaster. It wasn't just that Lysander had no talent. He had been set up to fail from the very start. Someone, probably the people who wanted him ruined, had tampered with his recipes and sold him bad supplies, ensuring he would never succeed even if he tried. I sighed heavily, running a hand through my hair. Okay, calm down. Panicking wouldn't help. I knew the plot. I knew exactly what was going to happen. And I knew the biggest secret of all, the one hidden deep in the game files, the one no player discovered until the very last moment, the truth that rewrote everything. The so-called Dark Lord wasn't the true villain. He wasn't evil. He wasn't a monster. He was just an ancient guardian, a protector of old magic that balanced the world. The real enemy was the king himself, King Alaric, a man consumed by greed, paranoia, and an obsession with immortality. He had orchestrated the entire story. He planned to manipulate Arya and the four heroes into killing the Dark Lord, steal the Demon Lord's magical core for himself, and use its infinite power to become an immortal tyrant who would rule the world forever. Arya, the Traveler, was nothing more than a pawn in his grand, twisted game. Guided by the magic woven into the fabric of this world, forced to follow the script exactly as it was written. I had absolutely no intention of getting involved. I wanted nothing to do with the plot, nothing to do with the heroes, nothing to do with Arya or the king or the looming war or anything that could possibly get me killed. I just wanted to survive, pay off these debts, and live a quiet, peaceful life far away from the capital and all this drama. But then I saw it, tacked crookedly to the front door, bright and bold against the dark wood, was a royal proclamation printed on thick, official parchment. I walked over and pulled it down, my eyes scanning the words, and my breath caught in my throat. Announcement. The Grand Royal Baking Competition, open to all citizens of the realm, regardless of rank or status. 3 rounds of challenges, judged by the royal court and the high mages of the tower. Prize for successfully advancing to round 2, 500 gold coins. Grand prize, 2,000 gold coins and the prestigious title of Royal Baker to the crown. 500 gold coins. That was more than enough to pay off every single debt scattered across this floor. More than enough to buy a small cottage in a quiet village far away from the capital, where no one knew the name Lysander Vance. More than enough to live comfortably for years, baking whatever I wanted, for whoever I wanted, safe and unnoticed. All I had to do was get past the second round. I didn't need to win. I didn't need to charm anyone. I didn't need to be the best. I just needed to make something good enough to not be eliminated early. Just enough to grab that prize money and vanish before the main story even really began. I looked down at my hands. Hands that, in my past life on Earth, had spent years kneading dough, mixing batters, perfecting every recipe I could find. Baking hadn't just been a hobby for me. It had been my passion, my comfort, my true skill. I'd worked in bakeries, taken courses, baked for friends and family until I knew exactly how every ingredient behaved, exactly how heat changed flavor and texture, exactly how to make something simple taste like magic. Lysander Vance might have been a failure, ruined by bad luck and sabotage, but I wasn't. Fine, I said aloud, tearing the notice off the door and folding it carefully, tucking it into the pocket of my worn trousers. My voice was still shaky, but there was a new determination in it now. I'll play along for a little while, just until I get that money. Then I'm gone. I won't touch the plot, I won't interfere, I won't even look at the heroes. I'll just be invisible, get paid, and leave. I had no idea that this simple, desperate decision would completely unravel the story and capture the hearts of the 4 most powerful men in the kingdom. Chapter 2: Rules, Risks, and a Secret Weapon. Over the next 3 days, I threw myself into preparing. I had very little time before the competition began, and even less money to buy supplies, so I had to be smart about it. First, I cleaned the shop from top to bottom. I scrubbed the stone ovens until they shone, cleared out all the weevil-infested flour and rancid butter, and threw away every single recipe book that had been marked up with wrong instructions. I couldn't trust anything that had belonged to the original Lysander. Everything had been corrupted to ensure failure. Instead, I relied entirely on my own memory. I mentally went through every recipe I knew, picking out the ones that were simple, required accessible ingredients, and were impossible to mess up if done correctly. I wasn't going for fancy or complicated. I was going for solid, reliable, and delicious. I walked to the market early the next morning with the last few silver coins I had to my name. I bought the best quality flour, yeast, butter, sugar, and fresh fruit I could afford. I knew exactly what I needed: high-protein flour for structure, fresh yeast for good rise, unsalted butter for clean flavor. I ignored the expensive, rare ingredients that other competitors would surely waste their money on. In my experience, the best food didn't need gold leaf or magical herbs. It just needed care and proper technique. While I shopped, I listened carefully to the conversations around me, gathering information. Everyone in the capital was talking about the upcoming competition. It was the biggest event of the season, not just because of the prize money, but because the judges included the 4 legendary heroes who had recently returned to the capital. According to the story, they had arrived in the kingdom weeks ago, summoned or drawn here by fate, and were now serving the king until the time came for them to set out on their journey with the traveler. Right now, they were still mostly strangers to each other, bound only by the magic of the plot that pulled them toward Arya. I also managed to get my hands on a complete copy of the competition rules and guidelines, printed and sold at the market stalls. I took it back to the shop and studied it late into the night, memorizing every detail. 3 rounds of elimination. Round 1, the staple. Bake a bread or basic food item that is nourishing, well-made, and representative of good craft. Round 2, the feast. Create a dessert or delicacy fit for royalty, demonstrating skill, flavor balance, and presentation. Round 3, the signature. A dish entirely of your own creation, showcasing your unique talent and style. Judging criteria were listed clearly: taste, texture, appearance, and, strangely enough, resonance. Resonance was described as a subtle magical quality that mages and sensitive souls can perceive in food made with genuine care, honest intent, and a pure heart. It was said that food with high resonance felt warm, comforting, and almost healing to those who ate it. I didn't fully understand the magic part yet, but I understood the principle. In my world, people said food tasted better when you made it with love. It seemed this world was exactly the same, just with literal magic attached to the feeling. That worked in my favor. I baked because I loved it, because I found peace in it, because I cared about the result. That was something Lysander had never been able to do. He baked only for pride and profit, never for joy. I spent the next 2 days testing recipes in the quiet of my shop. I started with the first round requirement: bread. I mixed flour, water, yeast, salt, and a little bit of honey. I kneaded it slowly and thoroughly, developing the gluten until the dough was smooth, elastic, and soft under my hands. I let it rise slowly, not rushing it, knowing that slow fermentation developed deeper, better flavor. I shaped it gently, scored the top with a sharp knife, and slid it into the hot oven. When it came out 40 minutes later, the smell hit me first: warm, sweet, yeasty, golden. The crust was deep brown and crisp, the inside soft and airy, smelling of comfort and home. It was perfect. Simple, classic honey wheat bread. Nothing fancy, but done exactly right. As I waited for it to cool, I thought about the 4 judges I would have to face. I tried to picture them again, recalling their descriptions and personalities from the game. Kale, the holy hero, the leader of the group. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sun-kissed skin and golden hair that seemed to glow. He wielded the holy sword and possessed immense strength and healing magic. His personality was kind, noble, dutiful, and a little bit too serious. In the story, he was the first to fall for Arya, drawn to her cheerfulness and her ability to make him relax. He was supposed to feel a natural protective instinct toward her. Rian, the silver-tongued rogue. Lean, lithe, and endlessly charming. He had messy dark hair, clever green eyes, and always wore a lazy, teasing smirk. He was a master thief, an expert with daggers, and knew every secret passage and rumor in the kingdom. He acted like he didn't care about anything or anyone, hiding a past of betrayal and loneliness. He was written to be the second love interest, won over by Arya's ability to see past his jokes and understand his pain. Elian, the Archmage of the Star Tower, the oldest and most powerful of the 4. He looked ageless, with long silver hair and eyes the color of deep twilight blue. He wore robes embroidered with stars and carried a staff carved from ancient wood. He was wise, calm, incredibly intelligent, but lonely, having lived for centuries while everyone around him aged and died. He was bound to fall for Arya because she was from another world like him, someone who understood what it felt like to be an outsider. Vare, the fallen demon prince, the most feared and misunderstood. He had black hair streaked with white, skin marked with swirling dark runes, small curved horns peeking through his hair, and large black wings folded against his back. He was powerful, brooding, and bitter, cast out from demonkind and hunted by humans. Everyone saw him as a monster, but in truth he was gentle, deeply loyal, and hurt by years of rejection. He was destined to be the last one to open his heart to Arya, who would be the first person to treat him like a person instead of a beast. For incredible men, all trapped in a story that controlled their feelings and their choices. From the moment the competition began, the magical compulsion woven into the world would start tugging at them, pulling their attention toward Arya, making her seem brighter, kinder, more perfect than anyone else. I was determined to stay completely outside of that pull. I would be invisible, just another baker, just a stepping stone they would barely notice before moving on to the heroine. On the morning the competition began, I woke up before dawn. I washed carefully, dressed in the cleanest clothes I owned. Simple white tunic, brown trousers, and a long apron, and packed my tools and ingredients into a sturdy wicker basket. I looked around the shop one last time, checking that everything was locked and secure, then stepped out into the cool morning air. The walk to the palace was short, but the closer I got, the thicker the crowds became. Hundreds of people lined the streets, cheering and talking excitedly. Banners hung from every building, displaying the royal crest and the emblem of the competition. When I reached the grand entrance of the palace, I joined the line of competitors checking in. There were nobles' children wearing silk and velvet, famous bakers from the city, merchants, travelers, everyone hoping for the prize money or the prestige. And then I saw her, Arya. She stood near the front of the line, surrounded by a small group of admirers already. She was exactly as described in the game. Young, pretty, with bright eyes and a warm, easy smile. She wore simple but neat clothes, and she radiated that special, intangible glow that all protagonists had. The feeling that everything good and wonderful was drawn naturally toward her. As she laughed at something a guard said, I watched the reaction of the people around her. Their faces softened, their smiles widened, they leaned in closer. The magic was already working. She didn't even need to do anything. The world itself was bending to make her the center of attention. I kept my head down, pulling the brim of my cap a little lower. Don't look at her. Don't catch her eye. Don't interact. Just be a shadow. Next. Name and title? The official at the table called out. I stepped forward quietly. Lysander Vance. No title, sir. The official looked up, scanning a list, and when he saw my name, his expression changed. His lips twisted into a faint, mocking smirk. Ah, that Lysander Vance. The one who owes half the market coin. I see. Well, good luck, I suppose. You'll need it. Laughter rippled through the small crowd standing nearby. Look, it's him. Lysander the loser. He's going to make a fool of himself again, just like last month. Why does he even bother? He can't bake a thing. I ignored them completely. I'd expected this. This was exactly how the story was written. Lysander arrives, is mocked, humiliated, then fails spectacularly. I let them laugh. Let them think I was useless. It was better for them to underestimate me. That way, when I made it past round 2, it would just be seen as a lucky fluke, not something worth investigating. I took my competitor's badge and walked into the grand hall. It was huge, high-ceilinged, lined with marble and gold. Rows of workstations were set up, each equipped with an oven, tables, and running water. At the very front, elevated on a large platform, sat the judges' table. And there they were. My breath caught in my throat, and for a second, I forgot how to breathe. Kale, Rian, Elian, and Vare. They were even more breathtaking in person than any illustration or game model could capture. Kale sat straight and tall in his white and gold armor, his golden hair catching the light, his face calm and kind as he spoke quietly to Elian beside him. He radiated a sense of safety and strength that made the whole room feel lighter just by him being there. Rian leaned back in his chair, one leg crossed over the other, spinning a small coin between his fingers with effortless skill. His green eyes scanned the room, sharp and amused, like he was already noting every secret and every person present. He looked bored but dangerous, beautiful in a sharp, clever way. Elian sat perfectly still, hands folded in his lap, his silver hair flowing down his back. His blue eyes seemed to see everything, looking right through people as if he could read their souls. There was an ancient, quiet power around him, heavy and majestic, and there. He sat slightly apart from the others, wings folded neatly behind him, horns dark and polished, his expression cold and closed off. He looked dangerous, terrifying even, and most people in the room avoided looking directly at him. But I saw the way his fingers were clenched slightly on the armrest of his chair, the way his eyes held a deep, weary sadness. He was waiting for someone to finally see him, just like the script said. For a heartbeat, as I walked to my station near the back, I felt Rian's eyes flick toward me. Just a glance, quick and casual, before moving on. My heart skipped a beat. Don't look back, I told myself firmly. Don't engage. You are nobody. I set up my station quickly, arranging my ingredients and tools exactly how I wanted them. I glanced over toward Aria's station, near the front, of course, and saw her looking confident and happy, already preparing her dough. Everything was going exactly according to the game's timeline. The magic was active. The heroes were waiting to be charmed. The villain was plotting in the shadows. But I wasn't going to follow that timeline. I wasn't going to be the fool or the stepping stone. I was just going to be the baker. I took a deep breath, rolled up my sleeves, and smiled quietly to myself. All right? I whispered to the empty air. Round 1 starts now, and I'm going to bake the best bread this kingdom has ever tasted. Chapter 3, Round 1, Honey Wheat Bread. The herald's voice boomed through the grand hall, echoing off the marble walls and high, vaulted ceilings. Competitors, you may now begin round 1. You have 4 hours to complete your entry. The challenge, the staple. Bake a bread or basic food item that is nourishing, well-made, and representative of good craft. Quality, consistency, and flavor will be judged above all else. A ripple of movement and noise went through the room as everyone surged toward their stations, rolling up sleeves, measuring ingredients, and lighting their ovens. The air quickly filled with the warm, dusty scent of flour, the sharp tang of yeast, and the low murmur of hundreds of people working at once. I stayed calm. While others rushed, nervous and hurried, I moved slowly and deliberately. Panic ruined dough. Patience made it perfect. I took out the ingredients I had selected the day before: high-protein wheat flour, fresh pressed yeast, clear spring water, a pinch of fine sea salt, and a small jar of wildflower honey I'd bought from an old woman in the market. Simple, wholesome, and exactly what was needed. I began by mixing the flour and salt together in a large wooden bowl. Then I dissolved the yeast and honey in warm water, not too hot or it would kill the yeast, not too cold or it wouldn't activate. When the surface turned frothy and bubbly, I poured it into the flour mixture, stirring with my hand until a rough, shaggy dough formed. I turned it out onto the wooden work surface and began to knead. This was the part one loved most. The rhythm of it. Press, fold, turn. Press, fold, turn. My hands worked automatically, guided by years of muscle memory. I worked the dough firmly but gently, developing the gluten strands that would give the bread its structure, its softness, its perfect crumb. As I worked, the dough changed beneath my hands, from sticky and rough to smooth, elastic and satiny soft. Felt alive, warm, and responsive. I lost myself in the motion. For a little while I forgot where I was. I forgot about the judges, the plot, the debt, the danger. I was just baking, doing the thing I knew better than anything else in the world. Once it was ready, I shaped it into a neat ball, placed it back in the bowl, and covered it with a clean cloth to rise. This was the secret to good bread time. I let it sit in the warm air, letting the yeast do its work, fermenting slowly to develop that deep, sweet, nutty flavor that rushed bread could never have. While I waited, I glanced around the room to see what the others were doing. Most competitors were making fancy, complicated things. I saw braided loaves, bread stuffed with expensive dried fruits or nuts, shapes woven into intricate patterns, crusts dusted with exotic spices. They were trying too hard, thinking that impressive looks would win points. Near the front, Arya was working on a large, golden braided loaf, sprinkled with sesame seeds. She moved with confidence, humming softly to herself, and every now and then she would glance up toward the judges' platform, smiling brightly. And the judges, I tried not to look at them, but it was impossible not to feel their presence. They sat high above us, observing everything. Kale was leaning forward slightly, his elbows on his knees, watching the room with earnest, attentive eyes. He looked genuinely interested, as if he truly cared about what we were making. Rian was slouched back in his chair, looking bored, picking at his fingernails, though his eyes never stopped moving, darting from one station to another, missing nothing. Elian sat perfectly still, his hands resting on the armrests, his gaze heavy and intense. Felt like he wasn't just watching us work, but watching our souls. And Vare sat furthest back, wings tucked tight, his expression dark and unreadable. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere but here. From what I knew of the plot, right now the magical pull was starting to tug at them. I saw Kale's gaze drift naturally toward Arya. I saw Rian's smirk widen when he caught her eye. I saw Elian's expression soften slightly when she laughed at something the baker next to her said. Even Vare glanced over once, his face relaxing for just a second before hardening again. It was exactly as written. The heroine shone, and everyone was drawn to her light. I looked down at my own dough. Good, I thought. Keep looking at her. Forget I exist. That's exactly what I want. When the dough had doubled in size, soft and pillowy to the touch, I punched it down gently to release the air, then shaped it into a smooth, round loaf. I placed it onto a floured wooden peel, covered it again, and let it rise a second time, shorter but crucial for the final texture. When it was ready to bake, I took a sharp knife and scored the top with a simple, deep cross. This allowed the bread to expand properly in the oven without cracking messily. I slid it carefully onto the hot stone inside my oven, closed the door, and let the heat do the rest. 40 minutes. I stood by the oven, wiping down my station, keeping time in my head. The smell started almost immediately, first yeasty, then sweet, then rich and golden. It filled my small corner of the hall, warm and comforting, wrapping around me like a blanket. I didn't notice that the smell was drifting further than I intended. I didn't notice that Kale's head turned sharply, sniffing the air, his brows drawing together in surprise. I didn't notice that Rian stopped picking at his nails and sat up straight, his lazy smirk vanishing, replaced by genuine curiosity. I didn't notice that Elian's eyes widened, and he leaned forward, magic shimmering faintly in the air around him as he reached out with his senses. And I definitely didn't notice that Vare's head snapped up, his cold expression cracking, his nostrils flaring as he breathed in deeply, looking around the room like he was searching for the source of something he hadn't realized he'd been craving. I only opened the oven door when the time was exactly right. A wave of heat and scent rolled out, stronger and richer than before. I pulled the loaf out using the peel, and it was perfect. Golden brown crust, deep and crisp, blistered beautifully from the heat. It felt light in my hand, and when I tapped the bottom with my finger, it gave that hollow, drum-like sound that meant it was baked through. Steam curled from the score marks, carrying that incredible aroma. Warm wheat, sweet honey, home, safety, love. I set it on the cooling rack and stepped back, wiping my hands on my apron. I was proud of it. It was simple, honest, and exactly right. Time is up. All work must stop, the herald shouted. Bring your entries forward for judging. Starting from the front of the hall, competitors began lining up, carrying their creations. Arya went first, of course, her golden braided loaf held high, smiling as she approached the judges. I stayed near the end of the line. I wanted to be last. Less attention. Less chance of them remembering me. From where I stood, I watched the judging. They were thorough. They looked at the appearance, the shape, the color. They tapped the crust. They broke a small piece open to check the crumb inside. Then they tasted it. Most got polite nods or neutral comments. Arya received praise. Excellent texture, Kale said warmly. Very pretty presentation, Rian added, winking at her. Good flavor balance, Elian agreed. Vare just nodded once, barely looking at her. Then it was my turn. My heart hammered against my ribs as I stepped onto the raised platform. I kept my head down, my face neutral, and set my round loaf down on the wooden board before them. Silence fell. For a moment no one spoke. They just looked at it. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't braided or shaped or decorated. It was just a simple round loaf. But the crust was a deep, glowing amber. The score marks were clean and even, and it radiated heat and scent so strong it seemed to fill the entire judging space. Kale leaned forward first. He reached out, turning the loaf gently with his hand. His expression shifted from polite formality to something else, wonder almost. The crust, he murmured. Look at the color. It's perfect. He broke a piece off. The sound was crisp, satisfying. The inside was soft, white, and airy with tiny, even holes throughout, the mark of excellent fermentation and kneading. Steam rose up, hitting him full in the face. He closed his eyes as the scent reached him. His shoulders, usually held high with the weight of duty and holy power, dropped. Just a fraction, but I saw it. He looked relieved, like he had just walked out of a storm and into a warm room. He put the piece in his mouth and chewed slowly. Time seemed to freeze. Then, Kale's eyes flew open wide. He froze completely, his hand hovering near his mouth. His face went through a whirlwind of emotion. Shock, disbelief, and then something deep and profound. He started, his voice rough. He cleared his throat, looking at me for the first time. His blue eyes were wide, bright, intense. It tastes like, I don't know, tastes like safety, like coming home after being gone for years. It's warm, it's sweet, it's right. Next to him, Rian had already grabbed a piece before I could even blink. He bit into it casually, his usual teasing smirk ready to deliver a sarcastic comment. But the comment never came. He bit down and his jaw literally went slack. The playful glint vanished from his green eyes, replaced by total, stunned surprise. He chewed slowly, forgetting to be charming, forgetting to act bored, forgetting everything except the flavor exploding on his tongue. Gods above, Rian whispered, swallowing hard. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, staring at my bread like it was a precious jewel. Where did this come from? This isn't just bread. This is magic. Real magic. It's like, for a second there, I didn't feel like running away anymore. I felt like I wanted to stay right here. Elian was next. He didn't take a piece immediately. Instead, he hovered his hand over the loaf, his fingers barely touching the crust. A soft, blue light shimmered around his palm. Magic. He was testing the resonance. Usually, food gave off a faint, dull glow. Even areas had shimmered gently, bright and cheerful. But when Elian's magic touched my bread, the whole table lit up. A warm, golden light burst from the loaf, soft and radiant, wrapping around Elian's hand, flowing outward like water, touching everyone present. It didn't feel like a spell or a weapon. Felt like sunlight. Elian gasped, pulling his hand back slightly, his face pale with shock. He looked at me, his blue eyes burning with intensity, seeing right through me, seeing everything. This is pure life magic, he said, his voice low and trembling. Resonance so high I have never felt its equal in my centuries of life. It isn't made with magic. It is magic, woven from intent, from care, from love. He took a small bite. The moment it touched his tongue, the calm, unshakable Archmage shuddered. A faint flush rose in his pale cheeks, and his eyes fluttered shut. "It quiets the noise in my head," he whispered. "All the voices, all the knowledge, all the weight. It just stops. It's peace. Pure peace." And finally, there. He hadn't moved this entire time. He had sat back, arms crossed, looking disdainful, convinced nothing good could come from a human baker, especially not from me, the failure everyone mocked. But now the scent had wrapped around him completely. The golden light had touched his dark wings. He couldn't ignore it anymore. Slowly, hesitantly, like he was afraid of what he would find, Vare reached out. His fingers were long, elegant, tipped with black nails, marked with those swirling dark runes. He tore off a piece of the soft crumb. He stared at it for a long second. Then he put it in his mouth. The change was instant and violent. The tension that always lived in his shoulders, the tension of being hated, hunted, feared, rejected, vanished completely. His wings, usually held tight and defensive, relaxed, drooping slightly open. The cold, cruel mask he wore shattered, revealing the raw, hurting man underneath. He closed his eyes, and a shiver ran through his entire body, from the tips of his horns down to the very ends of his wings. He breathed out a long, shaky exhale, and when he opened his eyes, they were not black and cold anymore. They were bright, molten gold, burning straight into mine. "It's warm," Vare said, his voice deep, rough, sounding like he was speaking through a throat tight with emotion. He leaned forward, ignoring everyone else at the table, ignoring the crowd, ignoring everything but me. For the first time in hundreds of years, the cold inside me, the darkness, it went quiet, felt accepted. Silence stretched across the entire hall. Hundreds of people were watching, holding their breath. The judges were supposed to be neutral, composed, professional. But right now, all four of them were staring at me like I had just pulled the moon down from the sky and set it on their table. I stood there, frozen, my mind completely blank. What is happening? I screamed internally. This wasn't supposed to happen. They were supposed to say, "Good job," and move on. They were supposed to be looking at Arya. Why are they looking at me like that? Kale looked down at his notes, then back at me. He swallowed, visibly composing himself, though his ears were bright red. "Lysander Vance, we have made our decision. It is unanimous." He looked me dead in the eye, and his voice rang out loud and clear for the whole room to hear. "You have passed round 1, with highest honors." Cheers erupted around me, but I barely heard them. I just stared at them, wide-eyed, terrified. This was bad. This was very, very bad. I wasn't supposed to stand out. I wasn't supposed to be special. I was supposed to be invisible until round 2, grab the money, and leave. But as I gathered my things and walked away from the platform, I felt 4 pairs of eyes burning into my back, following every step I took. And worse, I realized that the strange, heavy pressure I had felt in the air since I arrived, the magical weight of the story, the fate that pulled them toward Arya, had just snapped. And now, instead of being pulled toward the heroine, all 4 of them were looking only at me. Chapter 4, Round 2, Berry Almond Tart. I barely slept that night. My mind raced in endless circles, replaying every second of the judging over and over again. The way Kale's face had softened, the shock on Rian's features, the raw wonder in Elian's eyes, and most terrifying of all, the way Vare had looked at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. This wasn't part of the script. Lysander was supposed to be a joke, a nobody, a stepping stone. Instead, I had walked away with the highest honors in the first round, and whispers about me were spreading like wildfire through the capital. "Did you see that? The Vance boy? He's actually a genius. They say his bread glowed with magic, like nothing the royal mages have ever made. The heroes couldn't stop talking about him. Did you notice? They didn't even look at the traveler after he was done." I groaned and buried my face in my hands. Exactly. Arya, the true heroine. I had effectively stolen her thunder, and I knew exactly how that looked to the magic that guided this world, and to Arya herself. The next morning, I arrived at the palace earlier than necessary, hoping to slip in unnoticed. No such luck. As soon as I stepped into the grand hall, heads turned. People pointed, whispered, stared. Even the other competitors, seasoned bakers and nobles, nodded at me respectfully or gave me curious looks. I kept my head down, hurrying to my station, but I could feel the weight of attention. And then I felt her. Arya was standing near the front, her usual bright smile nowhere to be seen. Her eyes locked onto mine across the room, and instead of the warm, welcoming glow she usually radiated, there was something sharp and cold underneath. Jealousy, confusion, fear. The story she knew, the path she was supposed to walk, was shifting beneath her feet, and she clearly blamed me for it. I looked away quickly. Great, I thought. Now I've made the protagonist my enemy before the plot even really starts. The herald's voice boomed out, saving me from further overthinking. Competitors, welcome to round 2. The challenge today is the feast. Create a dessert or delicacy fit for royalty. You will be judged on skill, presentation, and most importantly, flavor balance and quality. You have 5 hours. Begin. A collective rustle went through the room as everyone sprang into action. Round 2. This was it. The finish line I had been aiming for. All I needed to do was pass this round, and the 500 gold coins were mine. I could pay my debts, pack my bags, and disappear before things got even more complicated. I didn't need to win. I didn't need to impress anyone. I just needed to make something good enough to qualify. I decided on a classic, reliable favorite from my past life, berry almond tart. A crisp, buttery short crust pastry. A layer of rich, fragrant almond frangipane cream, topped with fresh, tart wild berries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, arranged neatly and glazed with a thin coat of apricot jam for shine and sweetness. Simple, elegant, and impossible to mess up if done right. I set to work immediately. I mixed flour, cold butter, powdered sugar, and a pinch of salt, rubbing them together with my fingertips until the mixture looked like fine breadcrumbs. I added an egg yolk and a splash of cold water, bringing it together quickly into a smooth dough. I didn't overwork it, that would make it tough. I flattened it, wrapped it, and set it aside to chill. Good pastry needed rest. While the dough cooled, I made the frangipane. I beat soft butter and sugar until pale and fluffy, added ground almonds, a little flour, eggs, and a drop of pure vanilla extract. It smelled rich, nutty, and sweet, filling my corner of the hall with a warm, inviting scent. Once the dough was chilled and firm, I rolled it out carefully, lining my tart tin perfectly, pressing it gently into the corners and trimming the edges. I pricked the base all over with a fork to stop it from puffing up, then blind baked it until it was pale gold and crisp. When the shell was ready, I spread the almond cream evenly inside and slid it back into the oven. As it baked, the smell intensified, sweet, nutty, warm, making my mouth water even though I had made it 100 times before. While it finished baking and cooled, I prepared the fruit. I washed and dried the berries carefully, hulled the strawberries, and sliced them neatly. When the tart base was cool and set, I arranged the berries on top in a beautiful, overlapping pattern, bright reds, deep blues, soft purples, a rainbow of natural sweetness. Finally, I warmed some apricot jam with a little water, strained it, and brushed it generously over the fruit. It gave everything a glossy, jewel-like shine, locking in freshness and adding a final touch of golden sweetness. I stepped back to look at it. It was beautiful, rustic but refined, colorful and inviting. It looked like summer captured in pastry. As I worked, I tried to ignore the feeling of being watched, but it was impossible. I could feel their eyes on me constantly. Kale, leaning forward so far he was almost falling off his chair, following every movement of my hands like he was studying a sacred ritual. Rian, completely abandoning his bored act, his chin resting in his hand, a strange, soft, wondering expression on his face as he watched me knead, roll, and arrange. Elian, his fingers steepled under his chin, his blue eyes glowing faintly with magic, clearly tracing the flow of energy coming from my station. He looked fascinated, like he was witnessing a law of nature being rewritten. And Vare hadn't moved an inch, but his gaze was heavy, intense, fixed solely on me. He didn't look at anyone else, not even Arya when she walked past his station. It was as if nothing else in the room existed. "Time is up. Stop all work." The call came sooner than I expected. I wiped my hands on my apron, took a deep breath, and waited my turn. Arya went first again, naturally. She had made an elaborate towering cake covered in sugar flowers and gold leaf. It was beautiful, expensive, and very impressive. The judges praised her skill and presentation, but when they tasted it, their reactions were polite and flat. "Very sweet," Kale said, smiling kindly, but without that spark of wonder he'd had yesterday. "Beautifully decorated," Rian added, though he barely looked at her. "Good technique," Elian agreed absently, already looking past her, searching for me. Vare didn't say a word. He didn't even take a bite. Then it was my turn. I carried my tart up, my heart pounding, and set it before them. Silence descended instantly, for pairs of eyes locked onto the golden pastry and the jewel-bright fruit. The scent rose up, sweet almonds, buttery crust, fresh berries, wrapping around them instantly. Kale was the first to reach for the serving knife. He cut a slice carefully, lifting it onto a plate. The crust flaked perfectly. The almond cream was soft and yielding. The fruit glistened. He took a forkful, closed his eyes, and put it in his mouth. And then he gasped. It wasn't a sound of pleasure. It was a sound of release. His whole body went lax. His shoulders dropped, his hands trembled slightly, and he let out a long, shuddering breath, as if a heavy iron chain that had been wrapped around his chest for years had suddenly shattered and fallen away. He opened his eyes, and they were wet. He looked right at me, his expression raw and open, stripped of all the Holy Knight's armor and dignity. "It's gone," Kale whispered, his voice shaking. That voice, that feeling in the back of my head, the one that told me where to go, what to do, who to look at, it just vanished. The moment I tasted this, the moment I saw you. Next to him, Rian had already eaten his slice. He was leaning over the table, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge, his face pale, his eyes wide and shining. "Same here," Rian said, his usual lazy charm completely gone, replaced by awe and disbelief. He laughed breathlessly, running a hand through his dark hair. "Gods, I didn't even realize I was trapped until the lock broke. I always thought I just naturally liked her, that I naturally wanted to be near her, to protect her, to belong to her. But it wasn't me. It was never me. It was something else, pushing me, pulling me, controlling me." He looked at me, and his green eyes burned with a terrifying, wonderful intensity. "And then you walked in, and suddenly I could choose. And the only thing I wanted to choose was you." Elian sat back in his chair, his hands folded in his lap, though they were trembling slightly. The blue glow around him was brighter than ever, swirling and reacting to the golden light pouring off my tart. "I have studied magic for over 500 years, Elian said, his voice calm but thick with emotion. "I have read every tome, decoded every spell, understood every binding known to man or demon. And never have I seen anything like this." He leaned forward, staring deep into my soul. "Your baking, your presence, it does not just feed the body. It dissolves enchantments. It breaks compulsion. It frees the mind. The spell woven into this world, the fate that binds us to the traveler, it is ancient, powerful, woven into the very fabric of reality. And you unravel it like it is nothing more than a loose thread in a piece of cloth." He reached out, almost touching my hand before pulling back. "You are not a side character, Lysander. You are the counter-magic this world has been waiting for." Finally, Vare. He hadn't eaten yet. He was staring at the tart, then at me, his expression a mix of hope, fear, and overwhelming longing. The darkness that usually clouded his aura was gone. His wings were relaxed, unfurled wide and beautiful behind him. His eyes were that bright, molten gold again, fixed only on me. He took a bite. He didn't speak for a long time. He just sat there, chewing slowly, savoring every second, tears actually spilling down his pale cheeks, cutting tracks through the dust of centuries of loneliness. When everyone else looked at her, they saw a savior, Vare said, his voice deep and rough, vibrating in the air. When she looked at me, she saw a weapon, a monster to be tamed, a power to be used. I felt it. I felt the pull to obey, to serve, to love her whether I wanted to or not. He stood up slowly, towering over the table, ignoring the court, ignoring the nobles, ignoring everyone but me. But the moment you stepped into the room, the moment I smelled your bread, I was free. I was mine. And the only thing I want is to be yours. The hall was dead silent. Hundreds of people stood frozen, witnessing something no one in the game's history had ever seen. The 4 male leads, completely and irrevocably breaking free of the plot and declaring their freedom and their devotion to me. I stood there, my heart hammering so hard I thought I would faint. This was worse, so much worse, than I ever imagined. I came here for 500 gold coins. I came here to be invisible. Instead, I had accidentally destroyed the magic controlling them, and now 4 of the most powerful beings in the kingdom were looking at me like I was their entire universe. Kale stood up, clearing his throat, though his voice was still thick with emotion. He looked at the judges, at the crowd, and then back at me, his face soft with a love I hadn't earned and certainly hadn't asked for. Lysander Vance, Kale announced, loud and clear, ringing through the silent hall. You have passed round 2, not just with honors, but with perfection. The prize of 500 gold coins is yours. You are through to the finals. He smiled at me. A genuine, bright, beautiful smile that belonged only to me now. And even if you choose not to compete further, even if you leave today, I think we have all already won everything that matters. I walked away from the platform in a daze, clutching the heavy pouch of gold coins that had been my only goal. I had what I came for. I could leave. I should leave. But as I reached the doors, I looked back. They were still watching me. Kale's gaze warm and adoring. Rian's expression soft and possessive. Elian's eyes wise and knowing. Vare's look hungry and devoted. And beyond them, I saw Arya standing in the shadows, her face twisted with pure, unmasked rage. She was whispering urgently to a royal guard, her eyes locked on me like daggers. I realized then that leaving wouldn't be so easy. I had rewritten the script, broken the bonds, and stolen the hearts the world had reserved for the heroine. Now, I wasn't just a baker trying to pay off debt. I was the biggest threat to the story, and the most precious treasure to the men who had finally been set free. And worst of all, I didn't want to leave anymore. Not really, because for the first time since I arrived in this terrifying world, someone was looking at me. Me, not a role, not a stepping stone, not a villain, and seeing something worth loving. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel isekai'd. Chapter 5, First Confessions. I retreated to the small changing room assigned to competitors, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped the heavy leather pouch of gold coins in my grasp. I locked the door behind me, leaned back against the solid wood, and let out a long, ragged breath. I have it. I actually have it. I lifted the pouch, feeling the satisfying, heavy clink of coins inside. 500 gold. Enough to wipe away every debt. Enough to buy a new life. Enough to vanish into the countryside and never look back. This was the goal. This was the only reason I had stepped foot in this competition. Logic screamed at me, pack your things. Leave now. Before things get even more tangled. Before you get dragged into the war, the politics, or the dangerous affection of 4 men who were never meant to be yours. But my feet wouldn't move. My mind kept replaying what had just happened out there. The way Kale's eyes had shone with tears. The raw honesty in Rian's voice when he spoke about feeling trapped. The terrifying certainty in Elian's gaze when he called me countermagic. And Vare. The way he had stood there, towering and powerful, yet looking at me like I was the only source of warmth in a frozen world. They weren't acting. This wasn't part of some hidden route I hadn't known about. the magic that bound them to the plot, to Arya, to their destined roles. It was gone. Broken by something as simple as flour, sugar, butter, and care. And because of that, they were choosing me, of their own free will. A soft knock on the door made me jump so hard the pouch slipped from my fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. Lysander! It was Cale. His voice was deep, warm, and gentle, vibrating right through the wood. I froze. I didn't answer immediately. I wasn't sure if I should open it. If I stayed quiet, maybe they would go away. Maybe I could slip out the window and be gone before sunset. But then I heard another voice, lower, smoother, laced with that familiar teasing drawl, but softer than I'd ever heard it. Come on, sweet baker. We know you're in there. We saw you run, Rian. And trust me, I'm very good at finding things, and people who try to hide. I closed my eyes, sighed, and unlocked the door. I pulled it open just a crack, peering out. They were all there. Cale stood at the front, his golden hair catching the light from the corridor window. His armor gleaming but looking less imposing than usual, his expression open and earnest. Behind him stood Rian, hands in his pockets, leaning casually against the wall, but his green eyes were fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Elian stood a little further back, hands folded into his sleeves, calm and watchful, his silver hair glowing like a halo in the shadows. And Vare, he stood furthest back, half in darkness, wings folded tight but relaxed, horns catching the light, looking like he wanted to step forward but was terrified I would close the door in his face. I stepped back, leaving the door open wider, my heart hammering against my ribs. You shouldn't be here. The competition isn't over. You're judges. People will talk. Let them talk, Cale said simply. He stepped inside before I could protest, his long legs bringing him right into the small room. The others followed, filling the space with their presence, warm, sharp, magical, and powerful. I suddenly felt very small, very ordinary, surrounded by four of the strongest beings in the kingdom. Lysander, Cale started, his voice dropping lower, softer. He took a step closer, and instinctively I took one back until I hit the wall. He didn't crowd me, but he reached out slowly, his large, calloused hand, used to holding swords and shields, hovering near my face. I need you to understand. What I said out there, it wasn't for the crowd. It wasn't just praise for the food. It was the truth. He swallowed, his blue eyes searching mine, raw and vulnerable. For as long as I can remember, I have felt a voice in my head, a quiet, constant whisper telling me my duty, telling me who to protect, who to serve, who to love. When the traveler arrived, that voice grew louder, told me she was the one, that my heart belonged to her, that my purpose was to follow her, to adore her, to give everything to her. His fingers brushed lightly against my cheek, sweeping away a stray speck of flour I hadn't noticed. The touch was warm, calloused, and so incredibly gentle it made my knees weak. I thought that was love. I thought that was fate. I thought that was what it meant to be a hero. But then you walked onto that stage. You gave us that bread. And the moment I tasted it, the moment I looked at you, the voice went silent. The pressure vanished. And suddenly, I realized I had never chosen anything in my life. Until now. He leaned in closer, his face inches from mine, his breath warm against my skin. I choose you, Lysander, not because of duty, not because of magic, not because the story said so, but because, when I'm near you, I feel like myself. I feel free, and I never want to feel anything else ever again. Before I could even process his words or the way my heart was racing, Rian moved. He slipped past Cale, his movements fluid and silent as a shadow, and suddenly he was right beside me, his shoulder pressing lightly against mine, trapping me gently between him and the wall. Big words from the holy night, Rian murmured, his voice right against my ear, sending shivers straight down my spine. He reached up, tucking a lock of my hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering at my jawline, tracing the line of my chin. His touch was lighter, quicker, but electric, every point of contact burning like a brand. But he's right, you know. I thought I was just naturally charming, naturally drawn to new, exciting things, naturally someone who fell easy and fell fast. He chuckled softly, but there was no humor in it, only a deep, aching honesty. I felt that pull too, that urge to flirt with her, to impress her, to make her laugh, to be her mysterious rogue. I thought, this is what I do. I run, I charm, I move on. But it wasn't me. It was never me. It was a leash, and I didn't even know I was tied to it until you came along and cut the rope clean through. He turned his face, his lips brushing the very edge of my jaw, sending sparks shooting through me. I don't want to run anymore, Lysander. I want to stay right here, right where you are. And if you'll let me, I want to be the only one who gets to make you laugh. He pulled back just enough to look me in the eye, his green eyes dark and swirling with longing. I'm yours, whatever that means, however you want me. Then it was Elian's turn. He stepped forward, and the air around him hummed softly with quiet power. He didn't touch me. Not yet. But his presence was all-encompassing, wrapping around me like a warm, protective cloak. He looked at me with those ancient, wise eyes, seeing every secret, every fear, every truth I held inside. You ask yourself why, Elian said softly, his voice like music, deep and resonant. You wonder how this happened, how a baker from nowhere, a side character written to be mocked, could undo magic that has held this world together for centuries. He lifted a hand, and his fingers hovered over my forehead, glowing faintly with soft blue light. He traced the shape of my face in the air, reverently, like I was something sacred. It is simple, Lysander. Magic in this world is built on will, on intent, on emotion. The spell binding us was built on control, on force, on making things be what they were not. But you, everything you make, everything you do, it is built on truth, on care, on genuine love for the craft, for the result, for the person who will eat it. His fingers finally touched my cheek, cool and smooth, yet burning with a quiet intensity. Control cannot stand against truth. Compulsion cannot survive against freedom. You didn't break the spell because you are powerful. You broke it because you are real. You are the only real thing in this entire fabricated story. And because of that, you are the only thing that matters. He smiled, a small, tender expression that made him look centuries younger. I have lived 500 years, seen empires rise and fall, magic come and go. I have never pledged my heart to anyone, but I pledge it to you now. I am your shield, your knowledge, your magic. Whatever you need, wherever you go. And finally, there. He stepped out from the shadows, and the room seemed to dim, as if the light itself was hesitant to touch him. He was terrifyingly beautiful, horns, wings, dark runes, eyes like molten gold. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw fear in his expression. Fear that I would reject him. Fear that even free, I would still see a monster instead of a man. He stopped a few feet away, keeping his distance, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. They always saw a weapon, Vare said, his voice deep, rough, vibrating in my chest. Humans, demons, the traveler. They looked at me and saw only power. Something to be used, to be directed, to be conquered. Even when the spell pulled me toward her, it wasn't affection I felt. It was just the desire to be useful, to be wanted for something. He took a small step forward, his wings shifting behind him, rustling softly like dark silk. And then you looked at me, in the hall. When you set your bread down, you didn't look at my horns. You didn't look at my wings. You didn't flinch or look away. You looked at me, like I was just a person, just another man judging your food. He let out a shaky breath, and for a second, the terrifying fallen demon prince looked like a lost, lonely boy. When I ate what you made, the darkness inside me, the anger, the bitterness, the cold, it all went quiet. Felt like home, like I belonged somewhere, like I was finally safe. He reached out a hand, slow and hesitant, giving me every chance to pull away. When I didn't, when I stayed exactly where I was, he rested his large, warm hand on my shoulder, his fingers spanning almost the entire width of it. His thumb brushed gently against my neck, sending a shiver right through me. "I don't know how to love gently," Vare admitted, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I only know how to protect, how to guard, how to destroy anything that threatens what is mine. But if you'll let me, I will spend every day proving to you that I am worth keeping, that I am worthy of the warmth you give so freely." He leaned down, his forehead resting lightly against mine, his scent, rain, smoke, and something sweet and wild, wrapping around me completely. "I am yours, Lysander. Body, soul, power, life, everything. Take it. It has always been waiting for you." Silence settled in the small room. For men, for confessions, for hearts laid bare at my feet. I stood there, overwhelmed, my mind spinning, my heart racing so fast it hurt. I looked from one face to the next, Kale's earnest devotion, Rian's tender longing, Elian's quiet wisdom, Vare's desperate hope. I swallowed hard, finding my voice at last, though it came out soft and shaky. You don't understand," I whispered. "I'm not a hero. I'm not powerful. I don't have magic or a sword or ancient knowledge. I'm just a baker. I can't fight battles. I can't save kingdoms. I can't be what you think I am." Kale smiled softly, his hand moving from my cheek to rest warm and firm at my waist, pulling me just a little closer. "We don't care," he said simply. Rian leaned in, his lips brushing the corner of my mouth, teasing, sweet, and promising so much more. "We don't want a hero," he murmured. "We want you." Elian nodded, his eyes shining. "Your strength is different, but it is greater than any sword or spell." And Vare, pressing closer, his large hand sliding down my arm to clasp my hand in his, holding it tight against his chest, right over his heart. "You don't need to fight," Vare said fiercely. "You just need to be here, to be ours, to let us love you." I looked at them, really looked at them, and realized something crucial. I had come here trying to escape the plot, trying to stay away from the characters, trying to survive alone. But now, I wasn't alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to be invisible anymore either. But before I could say anything else, before I could even begin to process the avalanche of emotions crashing over me, the door handle rattled violently. "Lysander, are you in there? The guards are looking for you. And Lady Arya wishes to speak with you." The voice was another competitor, nervous and hurried. The mood in the room shifted instantly. The tenderness vanished, replaced in a heartbeat by tension, wariness, and possession. Kale stepped slightly in front of me. Rian's smile turned sharp and dangerous. Elian's eyes flashed with warning. Vare's wings unfurled slightly, casting a shadow over everything. Arya, the heroine, the traveler, the one whose story I had just completely shattered. I took a deep breath, squeezing Vare's hand where it held mine. "I think," I said quietly, "that things are about to get a lot more complicated." Chapter 6. The Traveler's Rage. The knock came again, sharper, more insistent. "Lysander, open up. I know you're in there." The voice had changed. It wasn't the nervous competitor anymore. It was bright, sweet, and laced with that strange, compelling warmth I remembered from the game. The voice of the protagonist, the one that drew everyone in, the one that had been written to be loved by all. But now, beneath the sweetness, there was an edge, sharp, cold, furious. I looked at the four men surrounding me. The softness in their expressions had hardened instantly. Kale's jaw was set, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword as if preparing for battle. Rian's playful smirk was gone, replaced by a cold, dangerous glint in his green eyes. Elian's fingers were weaving small, silent sigils in the air, faint blue sparks crackling between them. Vare stood closest to me, his body blocking me from the door, his wings half spread like a shield, his dark runes glowing faintly under his skin. They were ready to defend me, against her, "Let me handle this," I said quietly. I squeezed Vare's arm, feeling the tense muscle relax just a fraction under my touch. "Please, don't make a scene. Not here. Not now." Vare looked down at me, his golden eyes searching mine, then nodded slowly, stepping back but staying close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. I walked to the door, took a deep breath, and pulled it open. Arya stood there. She was even prettier up close. Soft features, bright eyes, hair that seemed to catch the light naturally. She wore a simple dress that somehow looked elegant, and she carried herself with that confident, radiant grace that marked her as the chosen one. Behind her stood 2 royal guards, their hands resting on their spears, looking at her with obvious admiration. But the moment she saw me, her smile froze. Her eyes flicked past me, seeing the 4 men standing in the small room behind me, and her expression twisted. First shock, then disbelief, then pure, unmasked rage. "You?" she spat. The sweet, melodic voice was gone, replaced by something harsh and venomous. "What is the meaning of this? Why are they with you?" I kept my face calm, though my heart was hammering. "Lady Arya, we were just discussing the results of the round. As judges and competitor, it's—" "Don't lie to me." She stepped forward, pushing past me into the room as if she owned it. Her eyes swept over Kale, Rian, Elian, and finally locked onto Vare, the one who had never even looked at her before today. "This isn't about judging. I know what's happening. I can feel it. Everything was going perfectly, exactly as it was supposed to. I was supposed to win. I was supposed to be the one they admired. I was supposed to be the one they loved." She turned back to me, her face flushed with anger, tears of frustration glistening in her eyes. She looked like a wronged heroine betrayed by the world, and I knew instinctively that if anyone walked in right now, they would see it exactly that way. The sweet, kind traveler being bullied by the arrogant side villain and his cronies. "You did this?" she accused, pointing a shaking finger straight at my face. "You changed everything. You insignificant little nobody. You're just Lysander Vance, the failure, the joke character. You weren't supposed to matter. You weren't supposed to be anything more than a stepping stone for me." My blood ran cold. She knew. I stared at her, stunned. You know?" Arya laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. "Of course I know. I'm from your world too. Remember? I played this game 100 times. I know every line, every event, every route. I came here because I wanted this. I wanted to be the heroine. I wanted the power, the glory, them." She gestured wildly at the 4 men, who were now standing rigid, looking at her with expressions ranging from confusion to disgust. "And then you showed up. You took my place. You messed up the script. You used some kind of weird magic or witchcraft to brainwash them into looking at you instead of me." She stepped closer, invading my space, her voice dropping to a furious whisper. "I worked hard for this. I followed every step exactly. I learned the recipes. I practiced the skills. I did everything right. And you just waltz in with your stupid bread and your stupid face and suddenly everyone acts like you're some kind of saint? Like you're special? You're nothing. You're a glitch, a mistake. And you're ruining everything. Watch how you speak to him." The voice was low, deep, and terrifying. Vare stepped up beside me, his presence filling the room, his aura turning dark and heavy, making the air feel thick and hard to breathe. He towered over Arya, his golden eyes blazing, his wings rustling with a sound like rushing wind. "You speak of scripts and roles and ownership," Vare rumbled, his voice vibrating in the walls. "You speak as if we are objects to be collected, as if our hearts are prizes you have won in a game." He leaned down, looming over her, and Arya actually took a step back, fear finally flashing in her eyes. "We are people. We have minds. We have wills. And the only mistake here was thinking we could ever belong to you." Kale stepped forward too, his expression solemn and disappointed. "Arya, I thought you were kind. I thought you were good. But hearing you now, you don't care about us at all. You only care about what we can give you, about how we fit into your plan." He shook his head slowly, I feel sorry for you, because I know now whatever I felt for you before. It wasn't real. It was never real. And what I feel for Lysander is—" Rian chuckled softly, leaning casually against the doorframe, blocking any escape or exit, his green eyes cold and mocking. "She's right about one thing, you know," Rian said, looking right at me. "You were supposed to be a stepping stone, a bump in the road, something to walk over and forget." He pushed off the wall and walked over to stand on my other side, close enough that his arm brushed mine. "But you know what happens when you trip over a stone? Sometimes you fall in love with it." He winked, sharp and dangerous, then looked back at Arya. "And trust me, sweetheart, we aren't getting back up." Arya looked from one to the other, her face draining of color, then flushing bright red again as humiliation and rage took over. She was losing control. The story was slipping through her fingers, and she couldn't understand why. "It's him!" she screamed, pointing at me again, her voice shrill. "He's using magic. Dark magic. Enchantment. Look at him. He's nothing. He has nothing. He's in debt. He's a failure. And yet suddenly he's perfect? Suddenly he's special? It's not natural. It's witchcraft. I'm going to tell the king. I'm going to tell everyone. You'll be arrested. You'll be executed for what you've done." Elian, who had been silent until now, stepped forward slowly. The air around him hummed with power, and the temperature in the room dropped several degrees. He looked at Arya not with anger, but with a profound, icy pity. "You speak of magic," Elian said softly, his voice carrying absolute authority. "You speak of enchantment and control. You who willingly allowed yourself to be guided by fate, by the plot, by the magic that forced us toward you. You who wanted us not for who we are, but because we were written to be yours." He looked at her, and she flinched under his gaze. "Lysander does not use magic, Arya. He is the only one here who does not use magic. He treats us as equals. He treats us as human beings or demons or mages or knights, as people. He gives freely, without expectation, without demand, without wanting anything in return. That is why we are here. That is why we choose him. Not because of spells, but because for the first time we are being loved." He paused, letting his words sink in, then added quietly, "And you speak of telling the king? Be very careful what you say, and who you say it to, because I think you will find the king has his own plans, and they never included you." Arya froze. Her mouth opened and closed, shock replacing her anger for a second. She didn't know. She didn't know the truth about King Alaric. She thought he was the benevolent ruler supporting her quest. She thought he was her ally. But I knew, and Elian knew. And now, standing there, seeing her raw ambition and her cruelty, I realized something else. She wasn't just a victim of the plot anymore. She had become exactly what the plot wanted her to be, a tool. And now that she couldn't fulfill her purpose, she was dangerous. "Leave," I said quietly. I stepped forward, standing between her and the men, looking her straight in the eye. "Leave now, Arya, while you still can. I'm not your enemy. I never wanted to be. I just wanted to bake bread and pay my debts. But you're wrong about everything. This isn't a game anymore. This is real life. And people aren't prizes to be won or lost." I took a breath and gave her the warning I knew she needed, the one I had hoped never to have to say out loud. "You think the Dark Lord is the villain. You think the story is about defeating him. But you're wrong. He's just a guardian. The real villain is King Alaric. He's been using you from the start. He wants the Demon Lord's core for himself. He wants to become a god. And once he's done using you, he'll destroy you just like he plans to destroy everyone else." Arya stared at me, wide-eyed, terrified and confused. She wanted to call me a liar. She wanted to scream and accuse me more. But deep down, she knew I knew things I shouldn't. She knew I was right. "You're lying," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're just trying to trick me, to turn me against him. I trust the king. He's been so kind. He believes in me. Because you're useful to him right now. Elian said gently, sadly. Just as we were useful to you. Just as you wanted us to be useful to you. It is all the same cycle of use and discard. Lysander is the only one who breaks it. Arya backed away toward the door, shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. Tears of rage, fear, and utter confusion. She looked at me one last time, with so much hatred it made my chest ache, then turned and ran, slamming the door behind her. Silence fell heavy in the room. I let out a long, shaky breath and leaned back against the wall, suddenly exhausted. That had gone about as badly as it could have. Cale came over immediately, his hands resting on my shoulders, rubbing them gently to calm me down. Are you all right? She didn't hurt you, did she? If she so much as touches a hair on your head. I'm fine, I assured him, though my hands were still trembling. She's just scared and confused, and she's losing everything she thought she had. Good riddance, Rian muttered, crossing his arms and glaring at the closed door. I never liked her anyway, always too perfect, too bright, too scripted. You're so much better. You're real. You're messy and sweet and soft and mine. He grinned and reached out to tug a lock of my hair playfully, though his eyes were still dark with lingering anger. Elian walked over to the window, looking out into the palace grounds, his expression serious now. She meant what she said about going to the king, and unfortunately, she believes what she believes, and people will believe her. She is the traveler, after all, the chosen one, and you are still Lysander Vance, the debtor, the failure, the side character. He turned back to us, his blue eyes sharp and intense. She will ally herself with the king. Of that I am certain. In her mind, we have betrayed her. You have stolen what is hers. And the only way to fix the story is to follow the path she knows, even if it leads straight into the villain's hands. Vare growled low in his throat, the sound vibrating through the room. Then let her run to him. When the truth comes out, and it will, she will be the one destroyed. Not us. Not you. He stepped closer, wrapping an arm around my waist and pulling me against his side, solid and warm and safe. We know the truth. We know who matters. And we are strong enough to protect you from kings, from plots, from magic, from her. I looked at them. For powerful men, standing ready to burn the world down if it meant keeping me safe. And I realized that my simple plan, bake, get money, leave, was completely dead and buried. I couldn't leave now. Not when the enemy was revealed. Not when war was coming. Not when they were standing here, free because of me, ready to fight for me. I took a deep breath and straightened up, looking each of them in the eye in turn. Elian is right, I said quietly. She will go to the king, and she will tell him everything she knows about us, about me. And the king, he's been waiting for this. He's been waiting for a reason to move against you, against Vare, against the demon lord. He'll use her words as his excuse. I looked down at my hands used only to knead dough and mix batter. Hands that had somehow broken ancient magic and captured for hearts. I told you before, I'm just a baker. I can't wield a sword like Cale. I can't move in shadows like Rian. I can't cast spells like Elian. I don't have the power of demons like you, Vare. I looked up at them, determination hardening inside me. But I know this story. I know exactly what the king plans. I know where the traps are. I know who the spies are. I know where he will strike first and where he is weakest. I know the future that was written. I reached out and took Cale's hand, then Rian's, then Elian's, then Vare's, holding them all together between mine. I may be no help to you physically. I repeated the words I had thought long ago, the promise I had made to myself. But I know how this story unfolds. That is how I will help you. That is how I will fight. With what I know. With what I can see. With the truth that no one else remembers. I squeezed their hands tight. We aren't following the script anymore. We're writing our own. And I'm going to make sure that this time we win. Cale smiled, bright and fierce, lifting my hand to his lips to kiss my knuckles. Then we follow you, he said simply. To the end of the world, Rian added. No teasing left in his voice, only absolute devotion. Elian bowed his head slightly. My knowledge is yours. My magic is yours. My life is yours. Vare lifted my hand to his chest, right over his beating heart, his golden eyes burning with love and loyalty. And my power, Vare vowed, will turn the world upside down, if that is what it takes to keep you safe. We stood there together, for heroes and a baker, bound not by fate or magic, but by choice and truth. Outside the door, the world was changing. The heroine had become the enemy. The king was preparing his move. War was on the horizon. But right here, in this small room, surrounded by flower and sweetness and love, I knew one thing for certain. We were going to win, because the best recipes always include a little bit of rebellion. Chapter 7. My only weapon, knowledge. The door clicked shut behind us, sealing us inside the quiet sanctuary of my small bakery shop. It felt strange to be back here. The place where it all began, the dusty little space that had been nothing more than a prison of debt and failure only a few days ago. Now it felt like a fortress. I lit the lamps, casting warm golden light over the wooden walls, the shelves of ingredients, the long work table covered in flour dust and faint traces of honey and butter. The air still smelled faintly of the bread and tarts I'd baked, a sweet, comforting scent that seemed to wrap around us like an invisible shield. Kale, Rian, Elian, and Vare stood in the middle of the room, their massive, powerful presences making the space feel even smaller. They looked around with open curiosity, Kale smiling softly at the simple tools, Rian running a finger along the edge of the counter, Elian studying the recipe books on the shelf, Vare breathing deeply, as if drinking in the very atmosphere of the place where I spent my days. But their expressions were serious. The confrontation with Arya had stripped away any remaining illusion that this was just a simple competition or a harmless twist of fate. The game had changed. The stakes were real and they were deadly. I pulled out a chair and sat at the head of the table, gesturing for them to do the same. They obeyed instantly, moving to sit close to me. Kale on my right, Rian on my left, Elian at the end near the window, and Vare pulling his chair right next to mine, his thigh pressing warm and solid against mine, his hand resting casually but possessively on the back of my chair. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. This was it. This was where I became more than just the baker they loved. This was where I became the guide, the one who knew the map while they were walking blind. You know now, I began, my voice steady despite the nervous flutter in my stomach, that Arya isn't who she pretended to be. She's not just a kind girl brought here by chance. She knew exactly what this world was. She knew her role. She wanted it. She wanted you. Kale's jaw tightened, his hand curling into a fist on the table. To think, all that time I spent feeling drawn to her, feeling like I owed her loyalty, it was never real. It was just her playing a part, using the magic of this world to force our hearts where she wanted them. He looked at me, his blue eyes fierce and tender. But what I feel for you, that is mine. That is me. And nothing will ever change that. I smiled briefly, touched, but pressed on. She's dangerous now, because she knows she's lost control. She knows she can't get you back. And because she knows the story, just like I do, she knows exactly who she needs to turn to in order to fix things. King Alaric, Elian said softly, his voice grave. He steepled his fingers, his blue eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She will go straight to him. She will tell him everything. About us. About you. About how the prophecy has changed. And she will offer him exactly what he wants. Information, loyalty, and a way to move forward with his plan without us standing in his way. Exactly, I said. In the original timeline, Arya was his perfect puppet. She led you exactly where he needed you to go. She made sure you fought the battles he wanted fought, discovered the secrets he wanted revealed, and eventually, she led you all to the Demon Lord's stronghold, right into the trap he had prepared. I looked at each of them in turn, letting the weight of my words sink in. The king never intended for you to defeat the Demon Lord and save the world. He intended for you to weaken the Demon Lord, to drain his power, to make him vulnerable. And then, the king would step in, strike the final blow, take the core for himself and dispose of all of you, the heroes and the heroine alike. As loose ends that knew too much. Silence filled the room, heavy and cold. Rian whistled low and sharp, running a hand through his dark hair, his face pale with shock and anger. Gods above, we were never the heroes of this story. We were just the vanguard, the expendable shock troops sent in to soften the enemy for the real villain. He laughed bitterly. And Arya knew this? She knew she was leading us to our deaths. And she still did it? Just to get what she wanted. She didn't see it that way, I said gently. In her mind, she was the main character. She thought the ending would be her victory, her happy ever after, her reign alongside you as her kings. She couldn't, or wouldn't, see that in this story, there are no happy endings for anyone but the one holding all the power. I turned my gaze to Vare, who had gone very still beside me. His golden eyes were dark, his expression unreadable, his hands clenched tight on the table. The demon lord, he's not evil, Vare. You know that better than anyone. He's your kin. He's the guardian of the ancient magic that balances life and death, light and dark, creation and destruction. He protects the core because if it falls into the wrong hands, the world will unravel. It will become something monstrous, ruled by a tyrant who cannot die, cannot be stopped, and cares nothing for anyone but himself. Vare nodded slowly, his voice deep and rough. I have always known the humans feared him without reason, that they called him monster because they did not understand his power. But I did not know, I did not imagine, that our own king was the true beast hiding in the light. He turned to me, his eyes burning. Tell us everything, Lysander. Tell us every step of the plan he had. Every trap, every secret, every weakness. That is the weapon you spoke of. That is how you fight. Give us the knowledge, and we will turn it into our strength. I nodded. This was what I had been waiting for. This was my part to play. All right, listen carefully, because everything changes now. We aren't going to follow the path. We aren't going where he expects us. We aren't going to let him use us. I leaned forward, resting my hands flat on the table, my mind racing through years of playing the game. Every detail I had memorized, every hidden clue I had uncovered. First, Arya will reach the king by tomorrow morning. She will tell him that I am an anomaly, that I have broken the magic, that I have bewitched you and turned you against the crown. She will advise him that I am dangerous, that I must be removed, and that you four must be captured or neutralized before you can become a threat. I looked up at them. The king won't act openly. Not yet. You are still the beloved heroes of the people. He can't just arrest or execute us. Instead, he will issue a quest, a royal mandate, one that you cannot refuse without looking like traitors. What kind of quest? Kale asked, his hand moving to rest on the hilt of his sword, his expression grim. The purification of the western marches, I said. He will claim that dark creatures are gathering there, that an ancient curse has awakened, that it threatens the kingdom. He will order you to go there, investigate, and eliminate the threat. It's a death trap. The terrain is treacherous, filled with monsters, magical traps, and soldiers loyal only to the king, disguised as bandits or cursed beings. In the original story, half of you were wounded there. Rian was captured and tortured. Elian was drained of magic. Kale nearly died. And Vare was accused of betrayal and hunted down because the king planted evidence to make it look like he was working with the enemy. Vare let out a low growl, his wings rustling angrily behind him, shadows swirling around his shoulders. He tried to turn them against me, even when we were bound by the spell, even when they were supposed to be my friends. He tried to make them see me as the villain. He looked at Kale, then Rian, then Elian, his gaze softening. But not this time. Not now. Not ever, Kale vowed fiercely. Second, I continued, while you are gone, the king will move against me. He will use my debts as an excuse. He will send the Merchants Guild or the city guard to seize my property, arrest me for fraud or witchcraft, and imprison me in the dungeons beneath the palace. From there, I would disappear, accidentally killed while trying to escape, or executed quietly. No one would question it. Rian's eyes flashed, and he slammed his fist lightly on the table, his face cold and furious. Over my dead body. Let them come. Let them try. Before anyone lays a hand on you, I will have every guard in this city looking over their shoulder, wondering if the knife at their throat is mine. I reached out and covered his clenched fist with my hand, calming him. I know. That's why we aren't letting it happen. When the order comes for you to go west, you will accept it. You will look like you are obeying. But you won't go where he tells you. I turned to Elian. You know the old ley lines? The hidden paths of magic that run beneath the kingdom? The ones the king doesn't know about, the ones that aren't on any official map. Elian's eyebrows lifted, impressed. I know them. You do. They are ancient, wild magic, untouched by the crown. We use them, I said. Instead of going west, you travel along the ley lines, moving fast and unseen, straight toward the capital's outskirts. We don't go to the western marches. We go to the borderlands near the demon realms. That is where the king's supply lines are. That is where his spies meet. That is where he keeps the captured magical creatures he experiments on to try and replicate the demon lord's power. I smiled, a sharp, determined expression. We hit him where it hurts. We destroy his resources. We free his prisoners. We uncover his secrets and reveal them to the people. And along the way, we go to the demon lord first. Before the king can send anyone else. We go to him as allies, not enemies. We tell him the truth. We offer him protection. And we ask for his help. He will never trust humans, Vare said quietly, though he looked intrigued. Not after centuries of war and lies. He will trust you, I said, looking straight at him. You are his blood. You are his kin. And you have us, 4 powerful beings who have already broken free of the king's control. And you have me, the one who can prove the truth. Because I know things no one else knows. Secrets only the demon lord himself knows. Things I can tell him to prove I am not lying. I looked around the table, at their faces, shocked, amazed, and slowly filling with hope. I can't fight with a sword. I can't throw fire or turn invisible or fly. But I know every secret passage in the palace. I know every weakness in the king's magic. I know exactly where he keeps his stolen treasures, his forbidden books, and his most dangerous experiments. I know where the traitors are in the court. I know who is loyal and who is bought. I squeezed Vare's hand resting near mine, then Kale's arm, then Rian's wrist, then Elian's cool fingers. This is how I fight. This is my weapon. Truth, knowledge, memory, and with that, I can lead you where the king never expects. I can show you how to win without losing a single one of you. Elian sat back, letting out a long breath, a slow, bright smile spreading across his face. He looked at me with a new kind of respect, deeper and more profound than before. You truly are everything we needed, Elian said softly. The spell bound us to a path that led to destruction. You came and broke the chains, and then you gave us a new map, a new way, a way out. He shook his head, marveling. The king thinks he plays chess with the world as his board. But he never imagined that one of the pawns would suddenly stand up, flip the board over, and show everyone how the game was really supposed to be played. Kale reached across the table, taking both my hands in his large, warm ones, his expression shining with fierce devotion. We follow you, Lysander. Every step, every turn, every secret you reveal. We trust you with our lives, our hearts, our souls. He looked at the others, and they nodded in perfect, absolute unison. You are our baker. You are our freedom. You are our guide. And now, you are our leader. Rian leaned over, pressing a quick, fierce kiss to my cheek, his eyes sparkling with excitement and danger. This is going to be fun, isn't it? He whispered against my skin. Turning the tables, outsmarting the mastermind, making everyone who ever laughed at you bow at your feet instead. Vare stood up slowly, towering over us, his wings stretching wide for a moment before folding back, his golden eyes burning bright. He reached down, lifted me easily from my chair, and pulled me against his chest, wrapping his arms tight around me, safe and warm and overwhelming. "Whatever you plan," Vare rumbled, his voice vibrating through my chest. "Know this, every step you take, I am behind you. Every enemy you point to, I will destroy. Every danger you foresee, I will stand between you and it. And if the king thinks he can hurt you, if Arya thinks she can take what is mine, let them come." He pressed his forehead against mine, his breath warm and sweet. "Because you have turned the story upside down, Lysander. And in this new story, the villain isn't going to win. The heroine isn't going to win. The only ones who win are us." I rested my hands on his chest, feeling the strong, steady beat of his heart beneath my palms. I looked up at him, then at Chaol, Rian, and Elian standing close around us. My own personal army, my lovers, my friends, my family. Outside, the city slept, unaware that the war had already begun, unaware that the script had been torn up and thrown away, unaware that the baker from the dusty shop was now the most dangerous person in the kingdom. I smiled, feeling a strength I had never known before rising inside me. "Then let's get to work," I said softly, "because we have a lot of baking to do and a revolution to plan." Chapter 8: Betrayal and New Enemies. The morning sun had barely begun to paint the sky pink when the first sharp knock rattled the door of my bakery shop. I was already awake, kneading dough in the back room, my hands moving automatically through the familiar motions. Ever since the confrontation with Arya 2 days ago, a restless, anxious energy had hummed beneath my skin. I knew things were shifting, the plot I had memorized was unraveling, but the forces that drove it were still powerful, still dangerous. When I opened the door, Rian slipped inside quickly, closing and bolting it behind him. Usually, he carried that easy, confident swagger, hands in pockets, a teasing smirk playing on his lips. Today, his face was tight, his eyes sharp and dark, every line of his body tense. He didn't waste time on greetings. "It happened," he said quietly, his voice serious, "just like you warned us it would." My hands, dusted with flour, stilled instantly. I wiped them on my apron, my heart sinking even though I had expected this. "Arya." Rian nodded, his jaw tightening. "She went straight to the palace, walked right into the throne room and demanded an audience with the king. And she told him everything. Everything about us, about you, about how we broke away from her, about how your food changed us. She didn't leave out a single detail." Chaol, Elian, and Vare emerged from the back room. They had stayed here with me since the argument, refusing to let me be alone for even a moment. Chaol stepped forward immediately, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, his expression grim. "What did she say exactly?" Chaol asked, his voice low and hard. "Exactly what you feared she would," Rian replied, pacing the small space restlessly. "She spun a beautiful, terrifying story. She told the court that you, Lysander, are a master of dark, forbidden magic. That you used bewitched food and evil spells to cloud our minds, to enslave our wills, to turn us against our rightful destiny and our rightful leader, her." He let out a short, bitter laugh. "She painted herself as the tragic heroine, the only one strong enough to resist your corruption, the only one still loyal to the crown, to the realm, to the greater good. She wept, Chaol. She told them she was heartbroken to see us so changed, so controlled, so lost to her." Elian's eyes flashed with cold anger, the blue light within them flickering brighter. "And the king believed her?" "The king welcomed her," Rian corrected. "He listened to every word with that wise, sorrowful look he wears so well. And by the time she finished speaking, he had declared you, Lysander, a public enemy, a warlock, a threat to the kingdom. Warrants for your arrest were drawn up and sent out to every guard post in the city before the sun even rose." He pulled a crumpled parchment from his coat and tossed it onto the wooden table. I unfolded it slowly. There, written in elegant, heavy ink, was my name, Lysander Vance, labeled as a practitioner of witchcraft, a manipulator of heroes, and a danger to the realm. The description underneath didn't even match me well. It was written to make me sound sinister, secretive, and powerful. And below my name, listed as a formal declaration of loyalty and witness. Lady Arya, the chosen traveler. My throat felt tight. I had tried to warn her. I had tried to tell her that the king was the true danger, that she was just a pawn in his game. But pride, fear, and her desperate need to hold onto the story she believed in had been stronger than the truth. She thinks she's fixing things, I said softly, tracing the letters of my name. She thinks if she removes me, everything will snap back into place. That you will go back to following her, that the story will continue exactly as she remembers it, that she will get her happy ending. I looked up at them, at the four powerful men who stood between me and the world, their expressions a mix of rage, protectiveness, and pity. She doesn't know that, in the original story, the king used her exactly like this, to get to you, to get to Vare and through him to the demon lord. She thinks she's making an alliance. She's just walking right into the mouth of the wolf. Then we have no choice, Vare rumbled. He had been silent until now, standing in the shadows near the window, his wings folded tight against his back, his golden eyes burning with quiet fury. We cannot stay here. The city guards will come. And worse, the king's personal mages. They will not come to arrest you. They will come to kill you, or drag you away to be questioned and destroyed. He stepped forward, looming large and protective, radiating a heavy, dark warmth that settled over me like a shield. We must leave. Now. Vare is right, Elian said, already moving toward the back door, his hands weaving subtle patterns in the air. I have a safe house, an old property, hidden deep in the old district, built over ancient magical ley lines. It is shielded, undetectable, and far from the main roads. Rian knows the way. He has used it before. He shot a sharp look at the rogue, who offered a cheeky, unrepentant shrug. I set it up for emergencies, Rian said innocently. I didn't think I'd ever be using it to hide the kingdom's most wanted baker and his 4 personal guardians. Pack what you need, Kale said to me, his voice gentle but urgent. He came over, taking my hands in his warm, calloused ones, squeezing them reassuringly. Only what matters. We will take care of the rest. Your bakery. We will come back for it when this is over. When the truth is known. I looked around my small, beloved shop. The ovens I had fired up every morning, the shelves lined with ingredients, the table where I had first fed them and broken the spell. It wasn't just a business anymore. It was the place where everything had changed. But I knew we couldn't stay. I grabbed a sturdy satchel and filled it with the essentials. My best tools, a small stock of flour, sugar, spices, yeast, the things I needed to do the only thing I knew how to do to help. I didn't have a sword or a staff or claws. I had my hands, my recipes, and the strange, wonderful effect my food had on them. That was my weapon now. Within minutes, we slipped out the back door, moving quietly through narrow alleys and overgrown lanes, guided by Rian's intimate knowledge of every hidden path in the city. Elian wrapped us in a cloak of silence and concealment. To anyone looking, we were nothing more than shadows moving with the wind. When we finally arrived at the safe house, a small, solid stone cottage surrounded by high walls and thick ivy, I felt a small measure of relief. It was quiet, private, and secure. But the moment the door closed behind us, sealing us inside, the mood shifted. There was no more running. There was only planning. We gathered around the rough wooden table in the main room, the air heavy and serious. This was no longer just about avoiding arrest or hiding from angry guards. This was war, and I was the only one who knew exactly what the enemy intended to do. I took a breath, steadying myself, and began to speak, laying out the truth I had carried with me from the very beginning. You know Arya has sided with him, I said quietly. But what you don't know is exactly what she has agreed to help him do. Because she knows the story just like I do. She knows exactly where you were supposed to go, what you were supposed to do, who you were supposed to fight. I looked at Vare, whose expression had darkened at my words. In the original timeline, the king used her to guide you, I explained. He sent you on a holy quest to the Western Marches, claiming that dark forces were gathering there, that the demon lord was stirring, that the realm was in danger. You went because you believed it was your duty. You fought your way through monsters and curses. You were wounded, exhausted, drained of power. And finally, you arrived at the demon lord's stronghold. My voice hardened. You fought him. You weakened him. You made him vulnerable. You thought you were saving the world. But the moment he was beaten, the king stepped in. He appeared with his elite guard, saved the day, struck the killing blow, and claimed the demon lord's heart, the core of ancient magic that keeps the balance of the world. I looked at each of them in turn, letting the truth sink deep. He never wanted you to win. He never wanted you to be heroes. He wanted you to be his weapons, his expendable army. He wanted you to soften the enemy so he could steal the prize and become powerful enough to rule forever. And once he had what he wanted, he planned to get rid of you all. You Kale, too noble, too honest, too dangerous to his corruption. You Rian, too smart, too slippery, too hard to control. You Elian, too wise, too powerful, you knew too much about magic. And you, Ver, you were the biggest threat of all and the biggest prize. He wanted your power, your heritage, your connection to that magic. And Arya? Elian asked softly, though he already knew the answer. Arya was the key, I said sadly. The perfect puppet. She believed the lie just like you did. She thought defeating the demon lord would bring her glory, love, and a happy ending. She didn't realize that once her purpose was served, she would have been disposed of too. Just another loose end. Silence stretched out, heavy and cold. Kale slammed his fist lightly on the table, his face filled with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. We were nothing but pieces on a board. Everything we felt, everything we believed, every step we took, it was all orchestrated. All a lie. But not anymore, Rian said, his voice sharp and determined. He looked at me, his green eyes burning with fierce loyalty. The board is broken now. The rules don't apply. We aren't following the path he set for us. We follow you. Ver leaned forward, his large hands resting flat on the table, his gaze intense and unwavering. So tell us, if this is what he planned, what will he do now? Now that we are free? Now that we know the truth? Now that Arya is his only pawn left? Exactly what happened in the story, I replied immediately. But faster, more desperate. He will not wait. He knows I know his secrets. He knows I have broken his control over you. He sees me as the greatest threat of all. I unfolded the rough map I had drawn while we walked, spreading it across the table. He will issue the call to arms within days. He will announce that I have corrupted you, that I serve darkness, that I must be defeated to save your souls and the kingdom. He will send the royal vanguard, his strongest soldiers, his best mages, to hunt us down. And at the same time, he will send Arya and whatever forces she has gathered straight toward the borderlands. She will lead the advance. She will try to reach the demon lord first. She will try to finish the mission she believes she was born for. I traced the line on the map, showing the route they would take. She believes that if she kills the demon lord herself, or captures him, or delivers him to the king, she will restore the story. She will prove she is still the heroine. She will win you back. She doesn't understand she is racing straight toward her own destruction and toward his ultimate victory. I looked up at them, my resolve hardening like steel in fire. But we know the traps. We know the ambushes. We know where his spies hide, where his supply lines run, where his secret experiments are held. We know the demon lord is not our enemy. We know the king is the only monster here. I stood up straight, looking at the four men who had given me everything. They think they have all the power. They think they have the law, the army, and the story on their side. But they forgot one thing. I tapped my chest, then tapped my head. I know the future they are trying to create, and I know exactly how to make sure it never happens. Kale stood, drawing his sword slowly, the metal humming softly with that warm golden light I had come to recognize, the light that came only after eating my food. Then we are ready. Name the first move, Lysander. We follow you. First move is simple, I said, glancing toward the small kitchen at the back of the safe house, where my bags of flour and ingredients sat waiting. I bake. I bake until my hands ache. I make food that sustains you, that strengthens you, that keeps your minds clear and your bodies strong. Because very soon, we are going to have to fight. I looked at them, at their fierce, devoted faces, and smiled. A sharp, determined smile that felt right, felt true, felt mine. And when we do, we aren't going to run away. We aren't going to hide. We aren't going to let anyone dictate how this story ends anymore. We are going to rewrite it. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel isekai'd. Chapter 9, Magic in the Dough. The safe house was quiet, tucked away from the noise and bustle of the city. But inside, the air hummed with a new kind of energy. Ever since we arrived, I had barely stopped moving. The small kitchen had become my headquarters, my workshop, my battlefield. Flour dusted every surface. Sacks of grain, jars of spices, and bowls of rising dough lined the counters. I baked with a purpose I had never felt before. I wasn't just making food to fill bellies or delight palates. I was crafting strength. Every knead, every fold, every stir carried my intent. Be strong, be safe, be well. I thought of each of them specifically as I worked. Hearty grain loaves for Kale's endurance, sharp spiced buns for Rian's speed, balanced honey cakes for Elian's magic, soft sweet rolls to calm Vare's heavy heart. They ate everything I put in front of them, and the change was undeniable. Kale could swing his sword for hours without tiring. Rian's reflexes had become almost too fast to follow. Elian's spells required barely a whisper and carried twice the power. Vare moved with a terrifying grace, his presence commanding and solid, the darkness that usually clung to him replaced by a warm, golden aura. We were growing stronger, preparing for the war we knew was coming. But we didn't fully understand why, not yet. That understanding came crashing in on us sooner than we expected. It happened late in the afternoon, just as I was pulling a fresh batch of cinnamon rolls from the oven. The sweet, warm scent of sugar, spice, and butter filled the room. Outside, the ward Elian had placed around the perimeter flared, a silent alarm we had agreed upon. In the next heartbeat, the front door burst open. Rian was already there, blades drawn, moving like a shadow. Kale was right behind him, shield raised, sword gleaming. Elian's hands glowed with crackling blue light. Vare stood broad and tall, blocking the doorway, his wings unfurled and casting a heavy shadow over the room. A patrol of the king's elite soldiers, heavy infantry clad in steel plate, accompanied by 2 robed mages, had found us. How, we didn't know then, but later we would realize Arya had given them descriptions of Rian's safe houses. "Stand down!" the captain shouted, his voice ringing through the small house. "In the name of the king, surrender the warlock Lysander Vance and you will be spared." "Fat chance," Rian muttered, and launched himself forward before the man could finish speaking. What followed was a blur of motion and noise. I pressed myself against the wall, clutching the baking tray to my chest, heart hammering in my throat. It was terrifying and magnificent all at once. They fought like nothing I had ever seen before. Kale moved with impossible speed, his sword striking sparks off armor, deflecting blows that would have crushed a normal man. Rian was everywhere at once, disarming soldiers before they knew he was there. Elian's magic threw men across the room or tangled their feet in roots that burst through the floorboards. Vare simply advanced, unstoppable, his claws tearing through armor as if it were cloth. They were winning easily. We should have been safe. But the mages were cunning. While the soldiers distracted the front line, one of them slipped around the side, chanting under his breath, his staff aimed low, toward Kale's exposed flank. "Kale, watch out!" I screamed. He turned, fast as lightning, but not fast enough. The mage struck. A jagged bolt of dark, sickly purple magic shot from the staff, hitting Kale hard in the side just as he raised his shield. He grunted, a sound of pain and effort, and was thrown backward by the force of the impact, crashing hard against the stone wall before sliding down to the floor. Kale! I scrambled over the overturned furniture, dropping to my knees beside him. The intruders were gone moments later, swept away by a blast of pure, furious power from Vare that nearly took the roof off the house. But I barely noticed. All I saw was Kale. He was pale, too pale, his skin turning a strange, ashen gray. His hand was pressed hard against his ribs, and even through the gaps in his fingers, I could see the wound. It wasn't bleeding normally. Dark, viscous fluid seeped out slowly, and the flesh around the injury was blackened and scorched, spreading outward like poison. His breathing was ragged, shallow, painful. Elian was there instantly, hands glowing bright blue, pressing them over the wound. His face was tight with strain and worry. "The magic! It's cursed," Elian gritted out, his voice sharp with alarm. "It doesn't just wound, it drains. It eats away at his life force, corrupts his body from the inside out. Can slow it, but it is strong, darker than anything I have felt before. It will take days to purge, and he will be weak for weeks." Kale tried to smile at me, though sweat beaded on his forehead and pain etched deep lines around his eyes. "I'm fine, just a scratch." But his voice was barely a whisper, and his eyes were already starting to roll back, exhaustion and the curse dragging him down fast. Panic seized me, hot and desperate. I couldn't lose him. Not like this. Not now. My hands were shaking, covered in flour and heat, and beside me lay the tray I had dropped. The cinnamon rolls. Soft, sweet, warm from the oven, glazed with honey and packed with everything I had put into them. My care, my wish for them to be safe, my love. Without thinking, I grabbed the largest, freshest one. It was still steaming. I tore it open, the sweet scent rushing up, and I pressed it against his good hand. "Here," I said, my voice cracking. "Kale, please, eat this. Please." They looked at me. Rian confused, Elian surprised, Vare dark and brooding, as if to say food won't fix this. But Kale, even through the haze of pain and poison, his eyes locked onto mine, obeyed instantly, unquestioningly. He opened his mouth and I fed him bite by bite. He chewed. He swallowed. For a second, nothing happened. Then, it began. First, the gray pallor vanished. Color rushed back into his cheeks, warm and healthy, as if someone had lit a fire inside his chest. Then, the dark, creeping blackness around the wound stopped spreading. It hesitated, then began to recede, shrinking back as if afraid. Then came the light. It started small, deep within his chest, the same golden glow we had come to associate with my baking. But this time it didn't just glow. It erupted. Brilliant, warm, radiant golden light exploded outward from him, filling the entire small cottage, so bright we all had to shield our eyes. It was warm, comforting, and powerful beyond measure. It washed over everything, over us, over the floor, over the walls. Underneath that light, the dark curse screamed, a sound only we could feel, and dissolved into nothingness like mist meeting the sun. The torn, blackened flesh knitted together smoothly, sealing shut, leaving only faint, unmarked skin behind. The poison was gone. The pain was gone. The exhaustion vanished. Kale drew a deep, full, powerful breath. No gasp, no struggle, just pure, easy life. His eyes flew open, clear, bright, and shining with a light so strong it seemed to come from within his soul. He sat up slowly, easily, without a wince, without a hand pressed to his side. He stood up, tall and straight, looking at his own body in complete, stunned disbelief. I feel." He looked at us, his voice ringing with a clarity and strength that shook the air. "I feel incredible. I feel stronger than I was before I was hit. Stronger than I was this morning. Stronger than I have ever felt in my life. It's not just healed. It's like I was filled up with something pure, something endless." He turned to me, and in his blue eyes, I saw awe, wonder, and a depth of love that took my breath away. Elian stood up slowly. He had lowered his hands, his healing magic forgotten, useless against something far greater. He turned to face me fully. His face was pale, his blue eyes wide and shining with realization, trembling slightly as he looked at me, then at the remaining cinnamon roll in my hand, then back at me. He stepped forward, slowly, reverently, as if approaching a holy relic or a force of nature. He reached out and gently took my hands in his. He turned them over, looking at my palms dusted with flour, as if seeing something written there that only he could now read. "Lysander," Elian said softly, his voice thick with emotion and absolute certainty. "Do you understand what just happened here? Do you know what you just did?" I shook my head, still breathless, still staring at Kale, who moved easily, testing his strength, radiating power. I just made a roll. I put extra care into it. I just wanted to help." Elian let out a breathless, disbelieving laugh. He lifted my hands higher, showing them to Rian and Vare, who stood equally stunned, equally amazed. "You did not just make food," Elian said, his voice ringing through the quiet room. "You did not just add flavor or care or love, though those are the vessels that carry it. Lysander, what you possess, what you weave into every loaf, every tart, every sweet you create, it is pure life magic." He paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. True, untainted, raw life magic, the kind that flows through the roots of the world, the kind that creates, sustains, heals, and protects. It is the oldest, rarest, most powerful magic in existence. It is the magic the king craves. It is the magic within the demon lord's core. It is the magic that binds souls and breaks chains. He looked deep into my eyes. "This is why you broke the plot control. This is why the compulsion vanished the moment you appeared. The magic holding us was control, binding, unlife. Your magic is freedom, truth, life. It is its natural opposite. It cancels it out completely." He gestured to Kale, who glowed like a beacon. "This is why you make us stronger. This is why we heal faster, think clearer, fight better. You aren't just feeding our bodies. You are feeding our souls. You are replenishing the very source of our power. You are unlocking the potential that was sealed away by the binding magic, giving us access to our true strength, our true selves." Elian shook his head, wonder written on every line of his face. "We thought it was the recipes. We thought it was your skill. We thought it was love. And those things are part of it. But they are just how you channel it. You are magic, Lysander. You are a font of pure, life-giving power, and you wrap it in flour and sugar and butter so we can eat it, absorb it, and become more than we ever dreamed possible." He smiled, a bright, brilliant smile of pure delight and pride. "You aren't just a baker. You are the most powerful magic user this world has seen in 1,000 years. And the best part? You don't need a staff, or a spellbook, or ancient words. You just need your hands, your heart, and your ingredients." Rian let out a loud, joyful laugh, stepping forward to wrap his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder, looking at me with adoration. "Magic or not, you still make the best food in the world. And now that we know eating it basically turns us into demigods, I'm never skipping a meal again." Vare moved closer, looming over us, his golden eyes burning with fierce, possessive pride. He reached out, his large hand cupping the side of my face gently. "The king wants power?" Vare rumbled, his voice vibrating through the floor. "He wants the core? He wants to be a god." He looked at the others, then back at me, his smile sharp and terrifying to anyone but us. "He doesn't realize. We already have the source of all life and power standing right here, and he is ours. We are never letting anyone take him. Never." I looked between them, Kale glowing with health and strength, Rian vibrating with excited energy, Elian radiating deep understanding, Vare wrapped in protective warmth. I thought of everything I had been through, everything I had done, everything I was preparing to do. I had thought I was the weakest link. I had thought my only value was knowing the future. I was wrong. I looked down at the tray of baked goods sitting on the table, simple things, made with simple hands, filled with simple love. I wasn't just bringing them food. I was bringing them the power to change the world. Then we know, I said, my voice clear and steady, filled with a new kind of confidence I had never felt before. We know what we have. We know what we can do. I looked at them, my four powerful, beloved guardians, my partners, my life. Now we know exactly how to win this war. Chapter 10, Rewriting the Story. The discovery changed everything. We were no longer just fugitives running from a tyrant, or rebels fighting against impossible odds. We held the one thing the king coveted above all else, pure, uncorrupted life magic, and it lived, breathed, and baked bread right in the center of our small, growing circle. In the days that followed, the safe house transformed. What was once a hiding place became a workshop, a training ground, and a fortress all at once. I threw myself into my work with a renewed sense of purpose and understanding. Now that I knew what I was doing, I could do it better. Elian spent hours with me in the kitchen, explaining the flow of magic, how intent and emotion acted as the catalyst, how the ingredients were merely vessels for the power I naturally channeled. He taught me to visualize the energy moving from my heart, down my arms, out through my hands, and into the dough itself. Think of it like weaving, he told me one afternoon, watching as I kneaded a heavy batch of rye bread intended for long-term stamina. You are weaving strength into every strand, weaving protection into every fold, weaving clarity into every rise. You don't force it, you give it. You pour a piece of yourself into it, because your essence is this magic. And he was right. As I learned to direct it, the effects grew more potent, more specific, more incredible. For kale, I developed the night's loaf, dense, grain-heavy, packed with seeds, dried fruits, and roasted nuts, baked slowly over low heat while I focused on endurance, resilience, and unyielding defense. When he ate one, his skin seemed to harden like enchanted steel. His stamina became limitless, and he could shrug off blows that would have shattered a shield. For Rian, I created shadow buns, light, airy, sweetened with honey and spiced with cinnamon and cardamom, ingredients associated with speed, perception, and sharpness, made while I thought of movement, silence, and quick wit. After eating them, he became truly invisible not just to the eye, but to magical detection. He could move faster than sound, see in pitch darkness, and react to threats before they even fully formed. For Elian, I perfected the Archmage's cake. Smooth, rich, made with ground almonds, citrus zest, and sweet cream, baked while focusing on balance, wisdom, and amplification. It acted like a limitless reservoir of power for him. He no longer grew tired casting complex spells. He could hold wards over miles, call storms, or unravel dark curses with barely a whisper. His magic didn't drain him anymore. It flowed through him, fueled by what I gave him. For Vare, I crafted the heart's roll, soft, sweet, filled with jam or cream, comforting and warm, made while focusing on peace, acceptance, and unleashing true power without losing control. It stabilized his immense demonic strength. Before, his power was volatile, dangerous to friend and foe alike. Now it was a weapon of terrifying precision. He could unleash waves of force that crushed armor without harming the people behind it, or shroud us in darkness that hid us completely. The heavy, brooding weight he carried lifted entirely, replaced by a quiet, majestic authority. We were becoming unstoppable. But power alone wasn't enough. We needed numbers. We needed information. We needed allies. And we needed to make our move before the king completed his preparations. One morning, we gathered around the table, maps spread out between us, baskets of my enchanted goods stacked within easy reach. The air was thick with purpose. He moves tomorrow, I said, tracing the route I knew so well from the game's lore. The path toward the western marches, toward the borderlands, toward the home of the demon lord. The king sends the royal vanguard ahead to secure the way and clear out any resistance. Arya rides with the advance guard, leading them with her heroine's light, telling them they march to save the world. The king follows days later with the main army and his most powerful mages. I looked up at them, In the old story, this was the beginning of the end. This was where you were worn down, tricked, and betrayed. This was where the tragedy began. I tapped the map firmly, right over the marked location of the Demon Lord's territory. But we aren't playing by those rules anymore. We aren't going to let them reach him. We aren't going to let them weaken him. And we certainly aren't going to let them take his core. Kale leaned forward, his expression fierce and shining with purpose. What is the plan, Lysander? Give the order and we execute it. It's simple, I said. We split up to do what we do best. Then we converge at the final point. I turned to Kale first. Kale, you take the northern route. You know the commanders of the vanguard. You trained with many of them. You know which ones are loyal to the crown and the people, and which ones are just mercenaries or cowards. You will travel fast, eating well. I gestured to the stack of knight's loaves. And you will intercept them before they enter the cursed passes. You won't fight them, not unless you have to. You will speak to them. You will show them the truth. You will tell them what they are really marching toward, who they are really serving. You will tell them you are free, you are strong, and you stand for the realm, not a tyrant. I squeezed his hand. Convince them to stand down, or better yet, to stand with us. We need soldiers, Kale. Good men who know right from wrong. He nodded solemnly, his hand resting on his sword hilt. Consider it done. I know exactly who will listen, and who needs to see the proof. And if they force my hand, well, he smiled, sharp and bright. With what you've given me, I can hold off an army alone long enough to make my point. I turned to Rian next. Rian, you have the most dangerous, most important job. You go straight into the capital, straight into the palace's shadow network. You know every spy, every informant, every smuggler and thief. You spread the truth. You tell everyone exactly what the king is planning. You tell them about the core, about immortality, about how he intends to rule as a god over ashes. I pushed a pouch across the table, filled with small, sweet shadow buns. Feed these to your contacts. It will keep them sharp, safe, and loyal. Use the speed and stealth I've given you to slip past every ward, every guard, every detection spell. Find out exactly where the king keeps his reserves, where his mages are positioned, where Aria's true orders lie. And most importantly, find the other allies we have forgotten, the guilds, the merchants, the scholars, the common people who are tired of war. Turn the city's whispers into a roar. Rian's eyes sparkled with wicked delight. He grabbed the pouch and looped it onto his belt, patting it affectionately. Oh, I am going to have so much fun. By the time I'm done, the whole kingdom will know the king is a fraud, and they will be singing songs about the baker who feeds magic to heroes. I'll have information flowing to us faster than he can block it. And if anyone tries to stop me, he tapped the dagger at his hip. Well, they won't be stopping anything ever again. Next was Elian. Elian, you come with me to the borderlands, but you go ahead first. You know the ancient magic of this land better than anyone. You know the ley lines, the old fortifications, the hidden paths. You go to the stronghold Vare spoke of, our new home, our base. You will arrive before us, and you will transform it. I pushed the heavy jar of Archmage's cake toward him. Use this power to weave the greatest defenses this world has ever seen. Wards that repel dark magic, that hide us from sight, that turn back armies, that heal anyone who steps within our walls. Make it a sanctuary. Make it a fortress. Make it a place where we can gather, plan, and grow stronger without fear. And while you are there, make contact with the Demon Lord and his people. Vare will tell you how to approach them. Explain that we come not as conquerors, but as allies. Explain that we know the truth, and we have the power to back it up. Elian looked at me with deep, calm affection. I will build you a kingdom, Lysander. A safe place, a strong place, a place where your light can shine without threat. And I will bring the guardians of the balance to our side. They will listen. They will see the truth in the magic I carry. Your magic. Finally, I turned to Vare. My heart always felt a little heavier when I looked at him. The weight of his history, his exile, his loneliness pressing between us, but now replaced by the fierce bond we had forged. Vare, You are my shield and my guide. You stay by my side. We travel together to the borderlands, but we take the slow road. We move through the villages, through the towns, through the lands the king has neglected or oppressed. We show them what we are. We show them that the monster they fear protects the baker who feeds hope. We show them that the warlock they are warned about feeds magic that heals and strengthens. I tapped the basket of hearts rolls between us. Your job is to show them the truth of your nature. No hiding, no shrinking back. Stand tall. Be the terrifying, magnificent, powerful being you are. But let them see that your strength is used to guard, not to conquer. Let them see that you answer to me, a simple baker. It will confuse them, it will amaze them, and it will make them question everything they have been told. I reached out and took his large, clawed hand in both of mine. We gather the people there, the ones the king forgot, the refugees, the farmers, the craftspeople, the families who just want to live in peace. We give them food, we give them safety, we give them hope. And when we arrive at the stronghold, we won't just have 4 heroes. We will have an army of people who know exactly what they are fighting for. A world where they are free, safe, and fed. Vare lifted my hand to his lips, kissing my knuckles gently, his golden eyes burning with absolute devotion. Where you go, I go. What you ask, I do. I was cast out, feared, hated, and you turned my power into something noble, something good. I will stand beside you, visible and proud. I will let them see me, and then I will let them see you. And they will understand that the greatest power in this world isn't fear, it's love. He looked at the others, his voice dropping to a low, resonant rumble that vibrated through the room. We break camp at dawn. We go our separate ways, but we are bound by more than distance now. We are bound by what he has given us. We are bound by truth. He looked back at me, and for the first time since I met him, he didn't look like the fallen, tragic prince. He looked like a king, my king. And when we meet again at the stronghold, we will not be hiding. We will not be running. We will be the force that rewrites history. The meeting broke up with a flurry of movement, packing, and final preparations. There was fear, yes, fear for the dangers ahead, fear of the king's power, fear of what could go wrong. But for the first time, that fear was outweighed completely by confidence. We knew the enemy's plan. We knew his weaknesses. We knew our own strength. And most importantly, we knew that every step we took, every battle we fought, every life we saved, was written by us, not by someone else's script. Later that night, as I sat by the small fire in the hearth, kneading one last batch of dough, soft, warm, filled with everything I had, I thought back to how this all started. I had woken up in this world terrified, penniless, cast as a villain. I had entered the competition only for 500 gold coins, planning to hide in obscurity forever. I had wanted nothing more than to stay small, to stay safe, to stay out of the story. Now here I was, the center of the story, the source of its magic, the one changing everything. I placed the finished loaf into the rising basket and covered it. I didn't want to be the hero, I whispered to the quiet room, smiling softly as arms wrapped around me from behind, Vare's chin resting on my head. You aren't the hero, Vare rumbled softly against my ear. You are the author, and this is going to be the best story ever told. As dawn painted the sky gold and pink, we stepped out of the safe house, leaving the old life behind. We stepped out into a world that thought we were villains, thought we were defeated, thought the ending was already decided. They were wrong. We were just getting started. Chapter 11. The King's Downfall. The journey to the Borderlands had been everything we hoped for, and more. Just as we planned, Kale had succeeded in turning half the royal vanguard to our side. Not through force, but through truth and honor. Rian's whispers had grown into a roar. By the time we reached the Demon Lord's territory, the whole kingdom murmured of the tyrant's lies and the baker's magic. Elian had transformed the ancient mountain stronghold into a shimmering fortress of light and safety, and Vare's kin, seeing the pure magic flowing through all of us, had welcomed us not as enemies, but as long-awaited allies. Even Arya, when she finally realized the king intended to use her up and discard her just as I warned, had come to us, humbled, angry at herself, but determined to make things right. She joined our ranks, bringing with her the few loyal followers she still had, fighting now not for a script, but for what was truly good. We were an army now, not just 4 heroes and a baker, but soldiers, mages, demons, common folk, and nobles, all united by the same cause, freedom. But the king was not idle. His ambition had turned to desperation. When he realized his control was slipping, he accelerated his plans. He marched his entire army straight for the demon lord's core, tearing through the land, corrupting everything he touched with dark magic, his own form twisting and warping as he absorbed more and more power, becoming less a man and more a monster of greed and shadow. The final confrontation happened at the very heart of the realm, the ancient crater where the core lay, pulsing with raw, wild magic that kept the world balanced. I stood at the back of our lines, right in the center of the stronghold's courtyard, which had been moved magically to overlook the battlefield. My kitchen was set up here, open air, ovens blazing, tables laden with ingredients. I didn't carry a sword or a staff. I wore my flour-dusted apron, and I worked with a speed and focus I had never known before. Around me, baskets piled high, knight's loaves, shadow buns, Archmage's cakes, heart's rolls, and new creations I had made specifically for this day, golden breads of protection, sweet pastries of restoration, small hard biscuits that acted like shields you could eat. Every time a soldier, mage, or demon passed by, they grabbed something. Every bite filled them with light, with strength, with my magic. I poured everything I had into the dough. Every bit of my will, my love, my hope, my desire for this to end, for them to be safe, for us to be free. Down below, the battle raged. It was terrifying and magnificent. The king's forces were twisted, mindless things, fueled by dark energy and fear. But our side shone. Kale led the charge at the front, a golden god of war, his sword striking like lightning, his armor impenetrable, cutting through enemy lines as if they were made of paper. He didn't tire. He didn't slow down. Every swing, every step, powered by what I had given him. He was everything a hero was supposed to be, noble, unstoppable, radiant. Rian was everywhere at once. He moved between the clashing armies like a breeze, invisible and untouchable, striking down commanders, disarming mages, sabotaging siege weapons, whispering truths into the ears of confused soldiers who laid down their arms and joined us. He was the chaos that turned the tide, the trickster who always won, fast enough to dodge arrows, sharp enough to find every weakness. Elian stood on a rise, a beacon of blue and gold light. He wove magic that didn't just destroy, it healed, it cleansed, it protected. When dark waves of corruption rolled toward us, he raised a wall of pure light that burned it away instantly. When our fighters fell, he sent waves of restorative energy that lifted them back up, stronger than before. He controlled the very elements, calling winds to scatter the enemy, earth to block their path, fire that burned shadow but left flesh unharmed. He was wisdom and power made manifest. And Vare was the storm. He didn't hide his heritage or his power anymore. He stood tall, wings spread wide, horns gleaming, eyes burning like golden suns, larger and more terrifying than any tale had ever described. But when he roared, it wasn't a sound of rage. It was a sound of command. Dark energy shattered against him like water against rock. He moved through the enemy ranks like a force of nature, crushing their weapons, breaking their formations, scattering their numbers with mere waves of his hand. He was the guardian, the shield, the terrifying beauty that protected everything precious. And in the center of it all, towering over the battlefield, stood the king. He was no longer human. He was a swirling mass of shadows, spikes of dark iron, and crackling purple lightning, his face a twisted mask of greed and madness. He had reached the core, his hands buried deep in the pulsing golden light, trying to tear it free, trying to absorb it all into himself to become the god he believed he was meant to be. Fools! His voice boomed across the land, shaking the very ground beneath our feet. You think you can defeat me? I am the source now. I am the law. I am the end of your little story. He pulled harder. The core flared, screaming silently, its light dimming as his corruption seeped into it. The sky turned red. The air grew heavy and hard to breathe. Our soldiers stumbled, weakened by the overwhelming pressure of his dark aura. Even Kale, Rian, Elian, and Vare slowed, struggling against the sheer weight of his power. He was winning. He was becoming what he wanted to be. Is this it? I heard him laugh inside my head. Is this all your precious magic can do? A little extra strength? A little light? I am magic now. I consume it, corrupt it. I make it mine. He raised his hands, lifting the core halfway out of the ground, darkness pouring into it, turning its gold to sickly gray. This is how it ends, he shrieked. With me as your eternal ruler. I saw Kale fall to one knee, gasping. I saw Rian stumble, unable to move fast enough under the crushing pressure. I saw Elian's wards flicker and fail. I saw Vare roar in pain as dark lightning struck him again and again. My heart hammered in my chest, fear gripping me. But then, anger burned it away. Not rage, not hatred, but a fierce, protective, burning love. No, I grabbed the largest loaf I had ever made. It was huge, heavy, round, golden brown, crust scored with patterns I had drawn instinctively while baking, patterns of circles, of wholeness, of life. I had poured every ounce of myself into it. I had cried into the dough. I had laughed into it. I had put every memory, every feeling, every hope I had ever had, from both my old life and this new one, right into the heart of it. You are nothing, I screamed, my voice carrying further than it should have, amplified by the magic within me. You are a leech, a thief, parasite. You don't create anything. You don't make anything better. You just take and break and ruin. I held the loaf high above my head, facing the monster that was once a man. This is what magic is, I shouted. It's not about taking power. It's about giving it. It's about nourishing. It's about life. With all my strength, I didn't throw it as a weapon. I held it out, open, offering it to the world, to the core, to everyone fighting. I opened myself up completely, channeling everything through that loaf, sending that wave of pure, untainted life magic exploding outward from me in a shockwave that knocked everyone back. Friend and foe alike. It hit the core first. The gray, corrupted light flared, screamed, and then erupted back into brilliant, blinding gold. The king shrieked as the magic he tried to steal burned him instead, pure life being the one thing his corruption could not touch or control. It washed over Kale, lifting him up, filling him with more power than ever before, making him shine like a second sun. It hit Rian, and he vanished, reappearing instantly right at the king's feet, moving faster than light itself. It surged through Elian, and his magic changed. No longer blue, but pure white and gold, absolute perfection. Weaving spells that unraveled the king's dark form stitch by stitch. It crashed into Vare, and he grew larger and brighter, his wings stretching across the sky, his roar shaking the mountains, his power limitless and holy. And then, together, united, synchronized, fueled by the magic I gave them, fueled by the truth, fueled by the fact that they were finally, truly themselves, they struck. Kale's sword, glowing with the power of 1,000 suns, shattered the king's armor of shadow. Rian's daggers, sharp with truth and speed, severed his connection to the stolen magic. Elian's spell, a binding of balance and justice, froze him in place, stripping away every lie, every illusion, every stolen bit of strength. Vare's hands, massive and strong, grabbed the monster by what was left of his form and ripped him away from the core, tearing him from the source he had tried to claim, holding him high for all to see. Small, weak, terrified, just a man again, stripped of everything he had stolen. No, I am a god. I deserve it, he whimpered, dissolving into smoke and shadow, his voice fading into nothing as his dark magic unraveled completely, leaving behind only a simple, ordinary man, unconscious and powerless, falling gently to the ground. Silence fell over the battlefield. The red sky cleared instantly, turning back to soft blue and white clouds. The heavy pressure vanished. The corruption faded away, leaving the land whole and healthy. The core settled back into its place, pulsing gently, calmly, balanced and whole once more. Slowly, the roar of victory rose up, loud, joyous, crying out names. Kale, Rian, Elian, there, and louder than any other, rising above them all, echoing off the mountains and ringing across the whole world. Lysander. I stood there, hands still raised, covered in flour and dust, tears streaming down my face, shaking uncontrollably from the sheer amount of power I had channeled. Kale reached me first, dropping his sword, running the last few steps and catching me as my legs finally gave out. He held me tight, crying, laughing, pressing kisses all over my face, my hair, my hands. "We did it," he whispered over and over. "We did it. You did it." Rian was there next, wrapping his arms around both of us, burying his face in my neck, his whole body trembling with relief and joy. "I told you," he choked out. "I told you the best stories have happy endings." Elian knelt beside us, his hands glowing softly as he gently wiped the dust and flour from my face, his eyes shining with reverence and love. "You didn't just rewrite the story, Lysander. You changed the nature of magic itself. You reminded us all what it is for." And Vare, the great, terrifying prince, knelt before me, his head bowed, his large hands holding mine so carefully, as if I were made of glass. He looked up, his golden eyes soft and full of so much love it hurt to see. "You saved us," he rumbled, his voice thick. "You saved the world. And you gave us everything." Behind them, I saw Arya standing at the edge of the group, smiling through her own tears, nodding at me, a look of peace and new purpose on her face. She had found her own way now, no longer needing to be the heroine, just happy to be part of something real. I looked past them, out over the cheering army, over the healed land, over the clear sky. I had come to this world terrified, alone, cast as a villain. I had come just for 500 gold coins. I had wanted nothing more than to be invisible. I lowered my head, resting it against Kale's chest, surrounded by the 4 people who loved me more than anything, who I loved more than life itself. "Is it over?" I whispered, exhausted but so incredibly happy I thought I might burst. Vare stood up, lifting me effortlessly into his arms, holding me high so everyone could see, so I could see everyone. He smiled, that fierce, wonderful smile that was only ever for me. "It's just the beginning," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "The beginning of the sweetest, happiest, most wonderful story this world has ever known." Chapter 12. After the dust settles. The weeks following the battle were a blur of activity, relief, and slow, gentle healing. The fall of the king hadn't just removed a tyrant. It had shattered an entire system built on lies, fear, and manipulation. The people, once ruled by secrecy and force, emerged from their homes blinking in the sunlight, unsure exactly what had happened, but certain that the heavy weight they had carried for generations was finally gone. We established our main residence within the ancient stronghold Elian had transformed, now renamed the Sanctuary. It sat high in the mountains, overlooking vast, green valleys that were already recovering from the dark magic, bursting with wildflowers and fresh grass, as if the land itself was celebrating its freedom. It wasn't a cold fortress anymore. Elian had filled it with light, warmth, and growing things. Vare's kin, the people once feared as monsters, moved freely through the halls alongside humans, elves, and all manner of beings, working side by side to build something new. And right in the heart of it all, my bakery stood large, open, filled with sunlight, with a chimney that smoked cheerfully from dawn till dusk, sending the scent of fresh bread and sweet pastries drifting for miles around. I was no longer Lysander Vance, the disgraced noble, or Lysander the supposed warlock. I was simply Lysander the baker, but now, that title carried a weight and a warmth that made my heart swell every time I heard it spoken. People came from every corner of the realm. Nobles and farmers, soldiers and scholars, elders and children, They came not just for the food, though they loved that, but to see the person who had changed everything. They looked at me with awe, with gratitude, with love. But to me, nothing had really changed. I still woke up before the sun, tied my flour-dusted apron tight, and started mixing, kneading, baking, just as I always had. The only difference was that now, when I gave away a loaf or a tart, I knew it carried a little bit of magic, a little bit of healing, a little bit of hope. Arya had found her place here too. After the battle, she had come to me, humbled and tearful, expecting anger or rejection. Instead, I had just hugged her. I knew better than anyone what it was like to be forced into a role you didn't fully understand, to follow a script written by someone else. She became my right hand in the bakery, organizing the crowds, helping with the preparations, and listening to the stories of the people who came. She was good at it. Kind, strong, and finally free to be herself. Not just a chosen one or a heroine. She told me one day, while kneading dough side by side, that this was the happiest she had ever been. I thought the story was everything, she said softly, smiling as she shaped a roll. I thought love and glory came from following the path. But it turns out, it comes from making your own path and helping people along the way. I couldn't have said it better myself. As for the four who meant everything to me, their roles had shifted too, growing into something far more beautiful than any destiny or prophecy. Kale was no longer just the hero of the story. He was the commander of the guard, the protector of the realm, and the heart of our community. He spent his days training new soldiers, organizing patrols to ensure safety, and helping rebuild towns and roads destroyed by the war. He was everything he had been before, noble, brave, kind, but now it was his choice. He wasn't fighting for a crown or a prophecy. He was fighting because he wanted people to be safe. Every evening, he would come to the bakery, dusty or tired from work, and stand by the counter just like he did at the competition, waiting for his fresh loaf. He always ate it with the same look of wonder, as if it was the first time, and every time, that warm golden light would glow softly around him, reminding me of exactly where we had started. "You give me the strength to do it all," he told me one night, holding me close while the fire crackled. "But more than that, you give me a reason to come home safe." Rian, true to his nature, had turned the entire communication and trade network of the kingdom into his personal project. He was everywhere at once, organizing caravans, setting up postal routes, ensuring food and supplies reached every village, and running a very efficient and slightly mischievous intelligence network that kept us informed of everything happening in the land. He was still the same charming, sharp-witted rogue who loved a joke and a bit of chaos, but now his chaos was useful. He ensured that no one went hungry, no one was forgotten, and no one tried to slip back into old corrupt habits. He popped into the bakery multiple times a day, usually stealing buns or cakes, teasing the customers, or just leaning in doorways watching me work with that soft, adoring look only I got to see. "Who needs a treasure hoard?" he'd say, biting into a sweet bun and grinning. "I have the best riches right here, and I get to share them with everyone." Elian had become the chief advisor and Archmage of the renewed realm, but his focus had shifted entirely. Instead of studying ancient spells or hoarding knowledge, he dedicated himself to teaching, healing, and understanding the true nature of magic. He worked tirelessly to explain what we had learned, that magic was life, that it was meant to create and sustain, not control or destroy. He set up schools and healing houses all over the land, ensuring that knowledge was free and available to everyone. He spent hours every day in my kitchen, not just eating, but watching me work, observing the flow of energy, constantly amazed by the simple, perfect way I channeled pure life force without effort or incantation. "You are the greatest mystery of this world," he told me once, tracing patterns in the air above a rising loaf. "You taught us that power isn't about how much you can take. It's about how much you can give. That is the magic that will last forever." And Vare had undergone the biggest change of all. Once the feared, exiled fallen prince, marked as a monster and a threat, he was now the most respected, beloved guardian the realm had ever known. He was the bridge between all peoples, human, demon, magical, mortal. His power was immense, terrifying to enemies, but gentle and protective to everyone under his care. He spent his days patrolling the borders, meeting with leaders, or simply walking among the people, letting them see that his strength was for them. The fear that once followed him was gone, replaced by reverence and love. He was always close to me, never far away, a constant, massive, warm presence. He sat by the bakery door most days, greeting visitors, watching over me, ensuring that nothing and no one ever disturbed my peace or safety. He was my shadow, my shield, and my rock. I spent so long hating what I was. He whispered to me one evening, as we watched the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in hues of gold and purple, hating the power I had, hating that I was feared, hating that I was alone. And then you looked at me and saw me. You fed me, you healed me, you loved me. You turned my curse into my greatest gift. He pulled me close, wrapping his wings around us like a warm, safe blanket. I am the strongest being in this world, he rumbled softly against my hair. But I bow to you. I serve you, because you are the heart of it all. You are the one who makes everything matter. One afternoon, about a month after the final battle, I was sitting at the heavy wooden table in the center of the bakery, the same table I had brought them to all those months ago, the table where everything changed. I was peeling apples for a pie, my hands moving automatically, my mind wandering over everything that had happened. They were all there, just like they were in the very beginning. Kale was sharpening his sword nearby. Rian was perched on the counter tossing a small ball of dough up and down. Elian was reading a large book by the window, and Ver was leaning against the wall right behind my chair, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder. It was quiet, peaceful, warm. It was perfect. I looked around at them. These four incredible, powerful, amazing men who had been written to follow a story, who had been bound by control and lies, who had been destined for pain and loss. And now they were free. Now they were happy. Now they were mine. And I looked at myself, the minor villain, the joke character, the person who was supposed to fail and be forgotten. I had come here with nothing but fear and a desire for a little bit of gold to survive. I set down my knife and wiped my hands on my apron. You know, I said softly, smiling as they all turned to look at me immediately, attention focused entirely on me, as if I was the only thing in the world worth seeing. I entered that competition just for 500 gold coins. I just wanted to pay my debts and hide somewhere quiet. I never asked for any of this. I gestured to the bakery, to the stronghold, to the world outside that was healing and growing because of us. Kale smiled, that bright, warm smile that made my heart flutter, and walked over to kiss my forehead. Funny how things work out, he said gently. Rian hopped down from the counter and leaned in, grinning mischievously. You got the gold, by the way, and the fame, and the magic, and us. I'd say you got a pretty good deal. Elian closed his book and looked at me with that deep, wise affection. You got what you needed, even if you didn't know you needed it. You got a purpose. You got a home. You got love. Ver bent down, wrapping his arms around my waist and lifting me effortlessly onto his lap, holding me secure and safe against his chest. He rested his chin on my shoulder, his voice low and happy. You got everything, he said simply. I leaned back against him, looking at all of them, my eyes filling with happy tears. Yes, I had gotten everything, more than I ever dared to dream of in any life. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't just a baker. I wasn't a side character anymore. I was the center of this new, wonderful story. And the best part? We got to write every single page from here on out. It's a good story, I whispered. Kale took my hand. Rian leaned his elbow on the table beside us. Elian moved closer, and Ver squeezed me tighter. The best story, Kale agreed. And it's only just beginning, Rian added with a wink. Epilogue, the sweetest ending. Years had passed since the dust settled over the battlefield, since the sky turned blue again, since the world remembered what it meant to be free. The sanctuary had grown. What began as a single stronghold high in the mountains had expanded into a thriving, radiant city, built around the heart of everything, my bakery. It stood at the very center, larger and more beautiful than before, with walls draped in climbing flowers, windows always glowing warm with light, and a scent that drifted endlessly on the wind, drawing people from miles away. People came not just from this kingdom, but from neighboring lands, from far-off realms, from places I had never even heard of. They came for bread, for healing, for wisdom, for safety. They came because they knew here things were good. Here magic was kind. Here the story was happy. I was older now, though Elian once told me that because of the magic flowing constantly through and around me, I would stay this way for a very, very long time. I still woke before the sun. I still tied my flower-dusted apron tight. I still kneaded, mixed, and baked with the same love, the same care, the same intent I had always had. Nothing had changed, and yet, everything had changed. Kale was the king of the realm now, though he hated formal titles and insisted everyone still call him just Kale. He ruled with fairness, strength, and a kindness that was legendary. But you would never find him sitting on a throne all day. He was usually out working alongside builders, helping farmers bring in harvests, or training the young guards, teaching them that true strength was in protection, not domination. Every single evening, without fail, he walked through the doors of the bakery, his crown set aside, his armor polished but unadorned, and stood at my counter just like he did the very first time. "One loaf, please," he would say, his eyes shining with that familiar, deep love, for the road ahead, and for the way back home. And every time he ate it, that warm golden light would wrap around him, bright and steady, a reminder of the day we started this whole journey. Rian was still Rian. Officially, he was master of coin, head of communications, and chief of intelligence. Unofficially, he was the chaos that kept everything running smoothly. He knew everything that happened everywhere, always 5 steps ahead of anyone else. He ensured trade flourished, that no one was poor, that no one went hungry, and that anyone trying to bring back old corrupt habits vanished very quickly. He popped into the bakery a dozen times a day, stealing pastries, teasing customers, making everyone laugh. But when he stood near me, or sat talking late into the night, his sharp, playful eyes softened into something deep and tender that belonged only to me. "Riches rot," he'd tell me, stealing a kiss when no one was looking. "Power fades. But this," he gestured to the bun in his hand, then to me, "this lasts forever. And it tastes better than anything else in existence." Elian was the Grand Archmage, but his towers were open to everyone. He taught magic not as a secret art or a weapon, but as a part of life, something to be respected, nurtured, and used to help. He traveled often, visiting schools, healing houses and ancient sites, spreading the truth we had discovered. That magic was life, and life was magic. But he always came back. He always returned to the kitchen, to stand beside me, to watch my hands move through the dough, to feel the energy flow. He was still fascinated, still studying, still in awe. "You changed the world's understanding of everything," he told me one quiet morning, watching me score a loaf before it went into the oven. "Before you, magic was about power, about taking, about control. Now, everyone knows it is about giving, about nourishment, about love. You rewrote the laws of the universe simply by doing what you loved." And Ver was my shadow, my shield, my mountain. He was the guardian of the realm, the bridge between all peoples, the living proof that what society labels a monster can be the kindest, most noble heart of all. He was massive, magnificent, terrifying to anyone who meant harm, but gentle as a breeze with everyone else. He spent his days patrolling the borders, sitting in council meetings, or walking through the markets where children would climb all over him like a giant, warm playground. But his favorite place was still right by the bakery door. He sat there every day, wings folded, watching everyone come and go, ensuring that nothing bad ever touched this place or the person inside it. When I finished work for the day, when the doors were closed and the ovens were cooling, he would pick me up effortlessly, hold me against his chest, and carry me wherever we went, through the gardens, up to the high cliffs, or to our home built right above the bakery. "I was created to be a weapon," he whispered once, as we watched the sun paint the mountains gold. "I was written to be feared, hated, alone. I was destined to be destroyed. And then you fed me. You looked at me and saw only me. You gave me a purpose. You gave me a home. You gave me us. He pressed his forehead against mine, his golden eyes glowing soft and warm. I am the strongest thing alive. I can move mountains, call storms, shake the earth. But I would trade every bit of it, every drop of power, just to be the one who gets to hold you while you sleep. Just to be yours. Arya was there too. She ran the community hall next door, organizing feasts, festivals, and gatherings. She was loved by everyone, a leader and a friend to all. She was happy, vibrant, and finally, completely herself. She never spoke of being the chosen one anymore. She just spoke of being Arya. She told me often that getting everything taken away from her was the best thing that ever happened, because it led her here, led her to freedom, led her to this beautiful, messy, wonderful life. One evening, late in the autumn, the five of us, me, Kale, Rian, Elian, Vare, sat around that same heavy wooden table that had started it all. It was worn now, scarred, smooth in places from years of use, covered in crumbs and empty plates. The fire crackled in the hearth. The air smelled of cinnamon and yeast and comfort. I looked around at them, the hero, the rogue, the mage, the prince, and me, the baker, the one who was supposed to be a minor villain, a joke, a footnote in someone else's tragedy. I had come to this world terrified. I had come with nothing but a desire for a little money to survive. I had wanted only to stay small, to stay safe, to stay out of the story. And instead, I had become the author. You know? I said softly, smiling as they all turned their eyes to me. Full of love, full of history, full of happiness. I once thought this was just a game, just a story, something I watched from far away. I reached out, taking Kale's hand, brushing Rian's hair where it fell over his eyes, touching Elian's arm where it rested on the table, and leaning back against Vare's chest as his arms wrapped around me. But it's real, I whispered, tears of happiness pricking my eyes. Every bit of it, every loaf, every battle, every laugh, every moment with you. Kale smiled, squeezing my hand tight. It's real, and it's ours. And the best part, Rian added, grinning as he bit into a cookie, is that there is no end, no final chapter, no tragic twist. Elian nodded, his expression warm and wise. Just day after day, bread after bread, love after love. Vare kissed the top of my head, his voice rumbling deep and happy. Just us, forever. Outside, the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Inside, the fire glowed, the bread rested, and the people I loved most in all existence sat close around me. It wasn't the story anyone had written. It wasn't the ending anyone had predicted. It was better. It was sweet, warm, and perfect. And it was ours. The end. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel isekai'd. And that's the sweetest ending ever. From a scared side character to the one who changed the whole world. All with flower, love, and a little bit of magic. Did you love this story as much as I did? Smash that like button if you want more tales like this. And subscribe so you never miss a new adventure. And they all lived happily ever after. The end. What did you think? Too short? Too sweet? Or just right? If you wanted more, same. If you wanted less, too bad, it's done. What did you think? Drop your hot takes below and let's argue nicely. I read all the comments, especially the nice ones. Next video loading soon. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel isekai'd.